Second meeting of Building and Grounds Subcommittee and the Committee of the Whole. The first item on the agenda is the garden that we're proposing for Lynn Tech. Is there someone here to talk on that?
Yes.
We have some committee roll call.
That's admiration.
Run through a roll call.
Mr. Ward?
Present.
Ms. Castellanos?
Present.
Ms. Gately?
Present.
Observing is Ms. Capola and Mr. Nicholson.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us. So,
Yeah, I spoke to you, right?
yes, that's right.
Okay.
This is Jen. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Jen Coverdale, and I am the Urban Ag Manager for the Food Project. So I'm currently running the Ingalls Farm with the help of Young Ed Lee, who's our assistant grower.
So the idea of the Food Project Farm at Lynn Tech is in thinking about moving in the direction of what we're trying to do with Lynn Tech this year. And what's been done in the past is try to make it really inclusive to the entire community in Lynn. And so we have some space out in the front of the building that really isn't used for anything other than grass and a collection of trash at times. that we put out. And so Jennifer and I were speaking, and the thought of really being able to supplement our current curriculum and our vocational programs, and also our academic programs, with the community garden as part of in partnership with the Food Project. At some point, we would like to think about a landscape horticulture program as part of the Chapter 74 program for our high school students. And then also bring in some of our coach students, our life skills students to help run that farm with us as well. But in the meantime, just get this farm up and running as a way to be able to give back to the community and to utilize space that we have. The thought is the vegetative growth that we would have in the farm would help supply our culinary department as far as the Tiger's Den restaurant and any, I would like to say waste product, but I know that's not the right word to use, so I'm sorry ahead of time. But any product that's left over, how's that? Compost, okay, so I'm learning, I just want you to know this is a growth for me, I'm from the city, so we concrete everything. The compost would then be used in potentially some of our science classrooms as part of experiments, as part of biology, talking about nutrition and waste products and cycles and things like that. So this really is an opportunity, this partnership is really hopefully will be a partnership to supplement our current curriculum and use what we call a learning lab space, which is any outdoor space that we can to get our kids to be outside. In addition, we've also spoke with the YMCA and their thoughts of putting a rooftop garden as part of their renovation project, and we've had some really great conversation with them around how we could help them and start again with this outside here at Lynn Tech.
Would you be hiring any students for summer work to help with the garden?
Potentially. I mean, we would utilize our day school students. We wouldn't be the actual managers. We would work with the Food Project for that. We do currently have students that work with the Food Project who would like to be ambassadors at Lynn Tech to start it kind of as a club outside of the Chapter 74 vocational programs, but potentially going forward, sure. If that was an option.
Ms. Gately, you had your hand?
I love the idea. I just really think that gardens are the way to go in Lynn. I love that. I like over in Ingalls, they have a wonderful garden, and I think they have one over at Ford School now. I like the idea of bringing in horticulture and maybe landscape architecture, and I just think it's really what we need there to build the programs. And kudos for you coming in, and kudos for you for bringing it to us. Thank you.
I appreciate the presentation and what you guys are trying to do at Lynn Tech. The way to utilize that space effectively is it's amazing to see that work and that thought. And I really enjoy the work that the Food Project does. Some of the garden work that was done on Monroe Street, the salad program at Ingalls. I know there's a lot of positivity that came out of that, and what continues to come out of that. and to include it into curriculum and to potentially open up a landscape program and to use local produce, even using the compost as value. I think you hit every selling point, and I love the idea, and I support that. And to go and to even expand to our current, to look at the YMCA for a rooftop project to see how you can incorporate a partnership there is, you guys really, wow. I just am very impressed and grateful for this ideology and just work being done and a potential, even a summer program and work that could be done to, that area. It would be really, the perception there, it would be great to see that actively, that space being used, and there's many opportunities there. So, thank you.
I just quickly, I also am a big fan of gardens. I've worked with Ms. Cowdell down at Ingalls. We went through some rough times, but we survived them all, and I've been down for a couple of presentations. Third grade put on one display one time down there. They sounded like little farmers. It was tremendous. It was really a nice thing to be at. And based on that, I would entertain a motion to, Brian?
In terms of just operations, like costs, like what are some of that? Would the food project come in, supply the seeds and the training? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that works at Ingalls is we fund and maintain and provide the built environment, and then we partner with the school, and so the kids get to come out on the barn, and they have a designated school garden area that we also funded and built, and so we kind of provide the atmosphere and maintain it for kids to come and experience it.
And Jennifer and I also talked about getting other programs at Lynn Tech involved in this project. Carpentry to build the raised beds and potentially a post and rail fence, an archway, and some benches. We have now incorporated a masonry component into our carpentry program to do some stone work around it, to have maybe pre-engineering, do some draft work and things like that. So this really truly is, this is really all-inclusive at Lynn Tech. I mean, we're trying to bring every single vocational program in some way, shape, or form into this project. So it's not just one piece, and those students as ambassadors that currently work with Jennifer here at Lynn Tech, so.
And speaking from the food project's perspective, our goal is to address issues of hunger and food insecurity in our community by partnering with the community to do that, especially young people. And so, and in our relationship with Ingalls, it's such a natural fit for us because it's so high visibility. Schools are hubs where families come, where kids come. They get to see the farm, experience it physically, watch it change throughout the seasons. We do some farmers markets at Ingalls in the fall, but even in the summer, kids come down to the market and they're like, "That's from the Ingalls farm. I saw that grow." And so it's such a meaningful relationship for kids to be part of seeing that happen, of the food growing, and then also seeing it grow to the folks in the community who need it most. So that's with elementary school students, of course, and then it feels like even just it's also such a natural partnership with a tech school where kids are already learning about hands-on things, and there would be application for them to use their shop skills on the farm.
That's awesome.
I was wondering about the cost that he asked also. Is that, is a good part of it incorporated in from Lynn Tech?
So Lynn Tech wouldn't necessarily have any cost as far
Okay.
as running the farm, overseeing the farm, starting the farm.
Yeah, I don't
Really
mean
is the
that, but I
partnership.
mean, as far as getting it off the ground itself, are they gonna do
That would be a
all
big
of
capital
your?
expense for the food project, so.
Okay,
So
right.
this would be projected, like, not FY19, but FY20 moving forward for
Okay.
us, so.
And how far ahead would you need to, you mentioned starting a new program, like which is exciting, because how many students would we be bringing back from, another technical school?
Right.
I actually have the answer to that.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
what?
that.
It's upstairs on my desk. But I will tell you that it is one of the top 3 shops chosen for kids that live in Lynn that go to Essex Tech.
Okay,
The
great.
horticulture.
So they'd be back,
yeah.
back with us, which is a great thing for them
Yeah.
to be back
Agreed.
in the community. And just one other thing, would our culinary program be able to use the products that have been grown? Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gately?
I just want to input that back in the day when I went to college, I did a study away at the University of California, Santa Cruz, the Organic Farm Project, where we did like 17-foot bed, 18-foot beds, 12 feet under and up. So risen beds. So, and then you can triangular plant and all that stuff. I'm like excited about this. And I think it would be a great study for science, especially for students with the compost, how it heats up and then it breaks everything down. They could test the temperature. I think it sounds phenomenal. And I think a lot more students in Lynn would probably want to be in Lynn Tech to take this course. Thank you.
Nicholson?
Thank you. Totally agree with everything my colleagues have said about how exciting this is. Great example of a strong community partnership. The opportunity to offer more job skills is always something we're excited about. And I think it also ties in with some of the conversations we've had around improving nutrition and teaching about nutrition. And so that's a great opportunity. What would the timing be for a new vocational program? Like, how long does that take?
So we just opened HVAC and so I mean, in thinking about opening a program, it's one thing to open a program, it's another thing to really establish it with quality curriculum teaching and really getting it going. So usually once you apply for a program, you want me to answer, right? Oh, okay, I just wasn't sure.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, about a year after. So I would be thinking around the spring of 2020, I would be maybe having some conversations with Deb and Dr. Tutwiler about how we would be looking at utilizing some current space at Lynn Tech to apply for a landscape program, which takes about anywhere from 8 to 9 months from start of the program, binder submission, all the way through DESE walkthrough for final approval.
Thank you.
Satterwhite?
Thank you. I'm all about being a good neighbor, and I think that we have neighborhood schools, and our schools are throughout the city. We have many of them. But I think that this is a good example for people, especially in this community. If you think of Commercial Street and just this area, it's a lot of stone and a lot of businesses. So to see something different would definitely spark some interest in the community. So it's not just inside that will be impacted, it's people in the community that will as well. So I applaud that and thank you.
I would entertain a motion to approve the garden.
I'll make that motion to approve the garden. Excuse me.
LBTI.
I'll make a motion to move it to the full committee as a.
Second.
Motion made, we'll move it forward to the full committee. You should actually vote on that as well.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
yes,
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
and we'll move it to the full committee. Next on the agenda is the Harrington
Thank you.
hot
Thank
top
you.
proposal.
Hello, I'm Melissa Fusom, I'm the principal of Harrington. I did print out the proposal if anyone needs it. It does have some of the color images of what we are proposing, if anyone would like it. Anyone?
Oh, we have it.
Pavement playground proposal?
So, I was a little confused at first when I saw the email because I'm getting hot.
Yeah, I'd like to see the
I guess I
picture.
should see when that's gonna happen, because if we're gonna be painting or trying to paint, we would wanna do hot tub first. This was the proposal, it's not for a hot tub. So at Harrington, as some of you may know, we do not have a real playground. What we've done is we've made Playworks our major resource component. So we have what's called a yak track, we have a foursquare area, we have a wall ball area, and we have a large group game area and a small group game area. Over the years, we've gotten mixed feedback about Playworks, but the bottom line is it has reduced incident at recess in terms of accidents happening, if there were little scuffles going on, but it also has eliminated some of that creative interactive play. And so what we're proposing, through the help of a nurse, actually, who is an artist and a good friend of one of our teachers, Erin McDonald, who helped me with this proposal and has done a lot of work with this. She is volunteering her time to come to Harrington. She has created interactive hallways at Beth Israel Hospital and various preschools. And we want to turn our playground into an interactive playground that would be inclusive for all students. So our students that are in wheelchairs would have access to some of the new activities that we are putting out there. It would be used not only for recess, it would be used before and after school, which is a huge population of students that we have coming as early as 6:30 in the morning. And campfires there in the afternoon, so they would also be able to use that outside. But it would be for developing fine motor, gross motor, so OT, PT could use it, as well as a tool for reward or de-escalation in certain situations, because there is going to be so many different activities that are there. With our current playground, it is a big enough space that students in wheelchairs can go out, but a lot of the activities are your walking, or the large group games. It's not really an environment that is suitable for students in wheelchairs. So we did a very rough budget based on just what we looked at online. And we are thinking that it will cost us about $600. We do not have a PTO, but we do have a family engagement team that we use, and we have a McDonald's night coming up, we have a walkathon coming up, we have a teachers versus basketball team game that Dr. Tutwiler is repping. We're going to use those fundraising monies to get some of the supplies needed. I did touch base with Raw Arts a little bit just to see if we could include. However, the challenge there is most of their work that they do is done during the school year, and this is something that we can't do during the school year because our front of our schoolyard is utilized for, drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon, recess, gym. So we just feel like summertime is the most convenient time to do it because it's the least amount of foot traffic that we have in that area. And so in the proposal there is different activities that we are going to include, but there will be a skip counting component, an alphabet, a compass, a clock, I'm trying to think of all the things, a foursquare, a twister area, a mirror image square where there's two squares and you're kind of matching what the people in the squares are doing. But they will, the image shown, has feet in the middle of it, but we are also going to do feet and chair because we do have students, as I said, in wheelchairs. So yeah, there's like a rough scale drawing, because I am not an artist, on the back of the page, just as a setup of what we're thinking of.
Comments? Ms. Gately?
I like your sketch. It came out very good, and I can see where everything belongs. And I really, really like this idea, and it falls along nicely with the social emotional learning and how we're going to be collaborating with students and helping them to engage. I just think it's perfect, and I don't know if we have money here in our budget, Kevin, to, if they don't raise that 600, if we could help get some money in there to get it done.
So when I was thinking of this with this teacher, I knew a reasonable budget that we would get based on the events that I've listed here that we're using. And typically, I lowballed kind of where we were at with those fundraising events, and we will get, I shouldn't be saying this now, but that is an amount that I feel we will be able to.
That's like your low ball.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you. This is a great proposal. I think it's really creative and resourceful, and like Ms. Gately said, aligned with the social emotional learning and great fitness components. So thank you for your work on it. Sorry if you mentioned this already, but it just occurred to me another potential group to reach out to would be Beyond Walls in Lynn. It seems like there could be some alignment in terms of like the use of public space and art for that. So, yeah.
Castellano?
Your proposal was well put together. I appreciate that. I've seen it in the packet. Interactive play is important for children who experience trauma. I think trauma-informed play is something that, you know, when we rolled out social emotional learner curriculum and what I just digested it, I read a whole series of social emotional learning curriculum. Pretty well versed now. It's vital. It's definitely something that I support. It's definitely something I just actually recently just supported in the Boston Marathon. I ran 26.2 miles for Horizons for Homeless Children, and what they do is trauma-informed shelter play systems, and that's what I got to do, and I fully support that. And the efforts in fundraising, if maybe you get some of the dates for all of us up here, you can spread that around at the committee and everyone else in the city, and we can attend those, and we'll definitely...
Well, I will invite you to the basketball game, depending on how you feel about teachers really being competitive. We are competitive teachers. So.
I'm all for that.
I just want to come and rag the ref.
just want to take a picture with the ref. No, but if we could, yeah, we'll definitely support that. And I appreciate that.
And just to, thank you. And just to piggyback off of my colleagues as well as the suggestion from Attorney Nicholson, last year there was a veterans job fair held by the Painters Union, and they want to help as much in the city and form a good relationship with the school system. So that's a good place to start. I'm looking at all the materials you need. This is stuff that they use. It could be stuff that they already have. And it wouldn't hurt to reach out to them because they've definitely shown an interest, and it's a great union. So no problem.
Mr. Ford, just
Mr.
one
Bowler?
question, only one question. I didn't see it in your sketch, but do you have one of those benches, you know, when someone doesn't have a friend or goes sit on the bench and get a friend?
No.
It's, you know, we see it all the time on TV, different places, and what a difference it makes.
What is it?
It's a friend bench?
It's if
Buddy
you
bench, I
don't
think, a
have
buddy
anybody to
bench.
play with, right, Debbie? Somebody has
like
one
that.
in
Yeah.
one of the elementaries,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure which school has it. Do you remember?
Mrs. Jusome, if you find one, I will donate it.
Yeah.
Find the most expensive.
I'll split the cost with Mr.
I just also wanted you to know we will contact ISD as well to make sure that, you know, they are in full agreement as well. We have a meeting with them monthly, and we have a meeting coming up, and it's on my list of things to talk about with them.
I think it's a great idea. It's a very innovative use for a hot top. And I think that I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to move it to the whole committee.
Second.
Motion made and
To
seconded.
approve it.
Roll call?
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
We'll move it to the full committee.
Thank you, guys.
This personnel.
Motion to adjourn the building and grounds subcommittee.
No, that's Donna, thank God.
Donna? Yeah. We're doing 10 minutes over.
Well, that was a very important.
Oh, I agree.
Would you call the personnel subcommittee to order? Roll call, please.
Ms. Capola?
Present.
Ms. Gately? Mr. Satterwhite?
Present.
And on there is for the athletic trainer posting that was tabled from March 28th, 2019. Do we have somebody here to speak on it? Okay.
Just I
Mr.
provided
McHugh will.
you, at the March 28th, there was some discussion, and a lot of the discussion was around the treatment So I provided you a new posting, and you can see I actually had a further discussion with Joe O'Connor regarding this, and it's really, like he said, it's not really treatment, it's more first aid. So it's really like, that's why I put in parentheses. You can see I provided in yellow to cross out the word treatment and put first aid and put some examples of icing, splinting. So it says something that's actually what they do. So he said just substitute that word so it doesn't get into treatment. Although I forgot to insert, there was one other discussion, I think, Jared, you mentioned this, is on number 10. I didn't put it on here. I'd like to insert the pain management, because I believe you mentioned that, and I didn't write it down, but I realized after I submitted this, I said, I think there was something else I was supposed to put it. So in number 10, if we were to adopt this, I would ask that you insert the word, the pain management program that we have as far as information for the students, so this person would also inform them of that. So that would be another change that wasn't quite listed, but if we do adopt this, I would recommend we put that under number 10. If there's any questions, I'm here, Mr. Newton's here as well, if there's anything that we can provide for
I'm
support.
satisfied with these changes. Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless the superintendent needed to speak on it. No?
Full support.
All right.
I make a motion to accept the posting for the athletic trainer with the changes suggested by Kevin, which is paragraph 1 underneath responsibilities, change in treatment to first aid, i.e. splinting, icing, etc., and add in paragraph 10 in the responsibilities the informant of students about pain management and the effects of the use of pain medication with everything else that's listed in there. If those changes are made, this document is approved and ready to post.
And go to the
Is that
full
to move to
committee?
the full
And
committee?
move to
Move
the
it full committee.
And then, do we have a second?
second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Ms. Gailey?
Yes.
And Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Yep. Gotta wait though.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we have to wait.
I talked to her this
Okay.
Immediately after.
You came in looking real human today.
Almost getting run over by cars. Look at you. You were ready to stop it. You don't understand. This is what I saw visibly, okay? I saw you kids, and then I saw you turn.
There was discussion
You know when you had that adrenaline? You got your babies with you, man. And I was like, I'm glad I pulled up.
Just put that.
Because I almost saw you out.
Patrick said, I
But the lady saw, I'm like, all right. Yeah. You both are like,
Because now we got stuff to talk about. It won't be as crazy today.
Yeah, I think this is a good.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just call. All right, I'd like to call the order of the Policy Subcommittee meeting. Roll call, please.
Ford,
I'm not on the policy, am I?
no? Okay, let me check my thing. Okay, Mr. Nicholson,
Present.
Mr. Satterwhite,
Present.
And Mr. Ford,
Yes.
my mistake. President.
All right. So the only item we have on the agenda is the attendance policy. This was on the agenda last time, and we tabled it because of time. And so we have the proposal here from the administration. If you remember, we met as a subcommittee previous to the last meeting to discuss the findings from the steering committee that the administration put together with the guidance counselors and vice principals and administrators. And based on that guidance document and our feedback, they proposed a draft. Since that meeting, one of the issues from the guidance document that we had talked about was the suggestion to implement an earn back provision that would allow students who were given a failing grade as a result of attendance to earn back that grade in the future. And there was a question from Dr. Tutwiler about the feasibility of that. And so we talked to some of the districts that do have that option, which are Brockton, Chelsea, and Worcester, and the ones we identified. Our school committee secretary, Ms. Jules, distributed those policies, and I spoke with those districts and my notes from those conversations. The Worcester one, I finally got a hold of someone just today, so that's in the packet as well. Each of them had different approaches, basically, to the earn back. Chelsea's was more systems-based, where they would, if somebody in the following quarter had the right level of attendance, the system would automatically flag that, and as a result, the grade would be changed. Brockton's was more behavior-based. They would give students a form who wanted to work for the earn back, and if they showed good behavior for a week and that was signed off by their teachers, then that would make them eligible for the change in the grade, and that was the onus was put on them to get those signatures and bring the form around. And then Worcester's was a third approach, and that was more sort of content based. If the student got a failing grade in a particular class because of attendance or just because their performance was in a specific range, they could take that course in a supplementary system that Worcester offered. And let me just get the name of it here.
Plato.
Plato, thank you. Plato, it is called. And so, yeah, what's that?
It's virtual.
Yes, it's virtual. And so the student would take the course in Plato primarily on school grounds, either after school or on a Saturday, and then they would be able to get their passing grade back by doing that. So I think tonight our goal is to share any thoughts or reactions to the proposed draft that the administration provided for the policy, which would reduce the maximum number of unexcused absences and rework the definition of what's justified versus non-justified absences. And also, I would be curious in getting thoughts from my colleagues and from you, Dr. Tutwiler, and the administration on the reactions to what we learned from the other districts and how they implement the earn back.
Maybe we can start with that, just so we can see if they are going to answer some of the questions we may have.
Would be happy to. There's actually more changes that were referenced in your intro. So I think let me first set the table, and then happy to talk about what other districts are doing. So this draft proposal is one that we believe aligns with our core values around high expectations and is better aligned with DESE's accountability criterion on chronic absenteeism. You'll notice that in addition to the changes to the language, we have reformatted the information around what constitutes an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. I think we borrowed from the way that Chelsea does it. I think that was the one. The substantive changes to the policy are as follows. In paragraph 2, we've changed the number of days from 5 to 3, wherein there will be formal intervention. This change is aligned with the work of the wellness teams in schools at present.
Are you looking at this document so we can follow along?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so paragraph 2
Paragraph 1.
or paragraph?
You would probably want to have the original next to you so that you can see, or listen to the substance of the changes, and if they fit well with what you're thinking, you don't even need to go back to the old one.
Okay, I have the old one.
All right. Under documented absences, the second bullet, this is in the reformatted graphic, we have limited the number of notes from a parent or guardian regarding an illness to 2 per grading period, or per grading period, either trimester or quarter. And then finally, in the narrative after the reformatted presentation of the justified and unjustified absences, we have changed both the number of days and the response. Specifically, in any given grading period, this is what you were referring to, Attorney Nicholson. If a student reaches 4 unexcused absences, the highest grade that student is eligible for is a D- if the student would have otherwise passed the course. Of course, if the student was not passing, then the grade would be F. This is a proposal for you to consider. The decision's ultimately yours. I think it's prudent to share, and this, I think, is clear in all of the policies that are in the packet, that we could not find a peer district that exceeded 4 unexcused absences in a grade period before there was some sort of response, be it a grade reduction or failure. And then I believe 1 district had 3. In total, we believe this proposal reflects high expectations, built-in supports, and a measured response should the expectations not be met. Relative to the buyback piece, my biggest concern, and I think this was reflected in some of the responses from other districts, is we have limited guidance resources in our buildings, right? And they have large caseloads, and they are busy from the moment they set foot on campus until the end of the day, and then some. I worry about adding another administrative task to their already overwhelming workload. If we proceed with a feature in this policy where guidance is responsible for going back and manually changing grades should a student, receive an attendance failure or what have you, meet whatever criterion is established in the ensuing quarter, necessitating a grade change, the manual part is what worries me, just based on, I don't want them spending time doing that, is what I'm trying to say, frankly. I happen to know that while our current system, Power School, does not have a feature in it where we could create an algorithm that says, an if-then. So if a student gets an attendance F, for example, and then we say, if your attendance is perfect or you only have 1 unexcused absence or whatever it is, they meet our expectations in the ensuing quarter, it would automatically, it wouldn't require any human intervention. It would automatically change the grade. It comes at a cost because it is a, what they call a specialized request. Thank you. And on the high side, it would be about $10,000, but that is possible.
Yeah, Mr. Chadwick.
So I see here that you were referencing not the previous draft, but the adopted one from 2014 when you were talking about changes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I just have some questions on why certain things aren't put into this new proposed one, and I just want to delve into it. Maybe you have something behind it. So I like the box and how it clarifies the justified and non-justified documented absences. One of the things that's not in the proposed policy that's before us is the review board. Is that something you want to get away with or go away with?
You mean, so if a student goes beyond the allowable number of unexcused absences, being able to appeal that?
Yeah, it's to ensure fairness. A review board of administrators will meet to evaluate certain circumstances that pertain to the absences prior to final marks being recorded. So that's already something that's been in play, it looks like, since 2014. It's not something mentioned in this new proposal.
I would want to keep that. I would want to give students the opportunity to rectify any issues related to their absences. If there was, oh, geez, I just forgot to bring, I was at a funeral or I was at, absolutely. I mean, and the fact that we would need to say that in a policy is sad, but yes.
Yeah, it's there for a purpose.
reason.
It's a policy.
Yep.
And then the second thing was the students that don't attend school, but then attend or participate in the school event. It's prohibited in the old one, in the new one it's not mentioned. Unless that's going to fall underneath truancy, because that's very broad.
Can you read the part that's missing again?
Pupils may not attend or participate in school events if they are absent on the same day. I think it's supposed to say of the activity, not or the activity, unless permission has been granted by the school principal or designee prior to the specific event or function.
That would stay.
I think the issue here is that this first page are just the changes. It's not
I
a
didn't go
wholesale,
beyond.
replacement of.
This is not the complete. This is just the part that refers to.
Well, the part that I'm reading is the non-justified, so I would assume that it would have been put in the box. So it's not absent this, it's actually a part of the documented absences justified, which I double checked, they are included in the box. And then the other side is the documented absence non-justified, it looks like, but because you include the religious holiday, which is E, you talk about the school-sponsored activities or field trips, which is F, G, and everything else except for these two things. So I just wanted to make sure that they're not in this new policy. And I am for the earn back. I think that what Chelsea does and what they explained, which was an automated type deal, was good information, because that was a worry for Dr. Tutwiler with regards to time management, and the responsibility is still on the student.
Yep.
I think all of them, the responsibility is on the student.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So just on the earn back, I think that makes sense what you said, Dr. Tutwiler, about the burden on guidance counselors. I think, like Attorney Satterwhite said, and like how you pointed out, there's the Chelsea style system that's automated seems like a minimal burden on, and it sounds feasible for a cost, and we would have to think about that in terms of whether that's worth the investment. My understanding from the way Worcester does their program is that also would be minimal ask of guidance counselors, because they designate somebody that could be a teacher to be the administrator for the pilot program. Sorry, not pilot, Plato. For the Plato program. Does that sound right as well, or?
Well, I thought that approach was interesting because essentially the student is doing additional work. And that teacher who's assigned as like sort of the point person for that isn't paid any additional, which, is fine. I don't know. I feel like that would be something we would need to spend a lot more time on refining, get the curriculum department involved. If we wanted to go down a route wherein a student didn't meet the attendance expectations, and now we're asking them to do something around learning, I'd want to do more research on that. I believe that one came in just yesterday or today.
Today. I had that conversation this morning,
okay.
yeah. And then Brockton, it all. I think that one depends on who's the master of the form, who is responsible for giving students the form and checking that they've actually been signed out. Which I don't think would have to be a guidance counselor. It could be an administrator. I think that's how they do it there. Actually, is through an administrator. So it sounds like there's any of these approaches could be set up to not put an extra burden on the guidance counselors themselves.
Only insofar, I thought I saw in one or more of them that the guidance counselors were responsible for going back and manually changing. Did I misunderstand that? That there was someone's going to have to go
that was
back
actually.
in and
I think that was actually the Chelsea one, because Chelsea had said with their system they weren't able to implement the making the change automatic. They would automatically flag who was eligible for the change based on improved attendance, but they said they thought, the person I spoke with thought that was just a bug in their system, that if they had set it up correctly to begin with, that would be able to happen automatically. And it sounds like we've looked into that a little bit, and it could happen automatically.
It is possible.
Okay. Ms. Gailey.
Dr. Tutwiler, how many students does each guidance counselor in the high school, how many are they responsible for in a year?
Over
like
300.
at Lynn English and Lynn Classical, like 400?
The high threes.
High threes. So I don't know if my fellow counselors really, school committee members, really understand the amount of work that's put on a guidance counselor on a daily basis for the whole year. And I understand the credit recovery is a great thing. I do get that. And I do know that a lot of people are very compassionate, but I do not believe that we can put any more burden on our guidance counselors. I really do not think we can. We have a student here, and she can tell you how much time she got to spend with her actual guidance counselor. Was it a lot?
Yeah. I was actually there for 30 minutes today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that
an
abnormal amount of time?
most of the time when I go into guidance, it's like 5 minutes. But today I was in there for 30 because there was a problem with my transcript. But I walked outside, and not only my guidance counselor, but the other 4 had a line out the door of at least 6 kids.
So that's my only concern, is that it's nice to look at that this is going to be a wonderful thing, and you're going to recover these credits for students that need it. But to put the burden on the guidance counselors, I think would be really, at this point, because we're so overcrowded up there in the high schools, that it would be like a real burden. We have the credit recovery. We have a lot of other programs that are there. But to add this to the attendance policy, I think right now is not the best time. Maybe if our numbers went down, I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to also note that with the change in the number, dropping the number from the 7 to the 4, the vice principals and guidance counselors that were involved in that group for the guidance document all voiced that that's going to increase how, now the response time is shortened now. So that's going to increase also the amount of time that it's going to take, because they're going to have to respond quicker in order to try to get kids back on track. So I just want to caution you of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And within the attendance initiative, we have given guidance counselors a caseload that for this year has been overwhelming around outreach to families and dealing with attendance issues.
Mr. Gaslonis.
Yeah, so I kind of, so justifying absences in the merit of credits is a lot of different reasoning behind that, and there's a lot of time involved, a lot of labor, a lot of work that guidance counselors do outside of their job title. There's a lot of work involved with, and there's a lot of justifiable reasons on how to do that, and that takes a lot of time. And I think, just to kind of follow up and piggyback what Ms. Gailey said, it's a really important piece to know, and to know that time is very important, especially if we can figure out. I feel like it's a little bit. There's still. I know there's a lot of work that's been put into it. I agree. I see there's a lot of people involved on that team, but I do hear from our guidance counselors that they're swelling. They have really swelled up caseloads at all levels. And I think as we roll out maybe more social workers and as we really dive deeper into the attendance initiative and start to kind of build the foundation there, I think that's when we can start really, I guess, tweaking the attendance policy and really getting after it that way. But I think right now the capacity is just not there. We have well, I'm glad that we had 30 minutes, and it's true. Whenever I get to hear that, that's wonderful. I can imagine these guidance counselors are allotted a certain amount of time to work on. So they lose out on career advising. There's things that get broken up, and that for me that impacts equity for kids who might only have education as their ticket. And I think time is very valuable, and I think attendance is very valuable as well. And I also agree that, you know, I like that you don't fail, you keep a D, because I have kids in my own work world that have justifiable reasons why they miss school, whether it's being parentified, working, and they have legitimate reasons why they're not there, and that they have pretty decent grades, and then they're scorned with all S. And it's really difficult to recover that if you want to go plan maybe going off to college. And that transcript in high school, as we all know, they start looking at it, you know, very aggressively later on, you from freshman to really junior year. So you have 3 years if you're lucky. So that's a little bit of my
Thanks.
side.
So we're running out of time here.
Can I just,
Yeah, we can go ahead.
okay, I'll make it really quick. I'm wondering how is the changes in the other communities affected the dropout, and how is it going to affect our dropout?
That's a great question. That question was not posed to them. It was more around the procedural aspects
I
of it.
should have looked it up, you know, on the DOE site of what their dropout rates were, you know, but I didn't.
I can imagine, and this is just me theorizing, that if anything, the buyback probably helps because it offers students a second chance to earn a higher or passing grade. I don't think what's proposed is, you know, too much of a departure from that thinking, because if a student didn't meet the attendance expectations and was passing, they would still pass.
With a
It's not
D-minus.
to an F. It's a D minus. That's passing.
Yeah, it's passing, but it's still not a higher grade.
Understood.
I think also-
So if you're talking about
Yes,
kids
yeah.
going to college, you're not going to go to college you're not going to get accepted to some of these colleges with all D minuses.
So I think we're 10 minutes over. I think this is an example of an issue that a subcommittee is working on that needs more than 15 minutes to resolve. So I would propose, I think we should schedule a separate subcommittee meeting to finish this for the policy subcommittee. Would that be?
That's fine.
Yeah, but let's schedule it now while we're all together. When can people? When can we get together? We canceled our meeting next Thursday, I believe.
I can meet for a meeting on next Thursday.
Somebody couldn't do it. That's why we canceled. Yeah, Dr. Zohar. All right. Yeah.
That was yeah.
What about next Wednesday?
Do we have anything next
No?
Wednesday?
We leave on Wednesday.
Okay. All right. What about the week after then? The week of the 13th.
Tuesday.
Is it too
Can we
late?
do Tuesday night, the 14th?
Yeah. Scheduling. We're to continue this.
I think, what was the date? John, Tuesdays is the issue because City Hall, but if we have it earlier, there shouldn't be an issue.
That's fine.
You know,
We have a,
City Hall's
What,
open, but
Tuesday?
I know, but if he has to be here.
we have a negotiating subcommittee this coming Tuesday.
Yeah. We're talking about the week of the 13th
Yeah.
to do a policy
The 7th.
subcommittee meeting.
Is it the 14th?
Yeah.
14th, good? Tuesday night?
The 14th?
Brian? The 14th? Is that our next meeting?
No, that's a Tuesday night.
Could you, this is a policy subcommittee meeting, but we'd make it a committee of the whole so that everybody can come.
May 14th.
May 14th, is that good with everybody?
Sure.
Kaylee?
7 o'clock?
Yep.
Yep,
7?
7 o'clock. Okay, great. And then just one thing I'd ask for the proposal, could you prepare a version of the current policy with these changes, in-track changes, so that we can see what's being kept and what's proposed to change?
From the 2014, sure.
Yeah, great.
Do we have to make any sort of motion?
I think just to adjourn, unless before.
Are there any questions or any additional research that needs to be done going into that?
I think
I mean, there was a question about
Go ahead.
dropout.
Ms. Capola?
Yep.
The dropout rate?
And then Mr. Castellanos?
So I just have a question about the CRAs, child requiring assistance, kind of what the data looks like at the courts. I know a lot of we get CRAs filed because of attendance issues. I want to know what's going to be the determining factor now when we report that. That goes back to the department. You got to deal with that too as well. So I think there's some collaterals that, there's some communication around that kind of when it comes to the attendance policy if we adjust that. So when do you dictate when that happens?
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
Other questions?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, made and seconded, non-debatable.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
They're making a,
Busy puppies today.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree we shouldn't be burdening guidance counselors, but if there's a way to implement this without doing that. Yeah. Yeah, that would be the good Right. But, yeah, I mean, we can't just like make a policy.
But he said, oh, that's the kind of change we like.
Which one?
No, I totally agree.
I don't know. I'm looking at the last meeting, we'll know. It might have been one of these things, a subcommittee.
A joint, see, it was a joint. All together. We talked about everything in the world. We never had a joint.
Glad it was over.
She's questioning.
Is that the joint one here that made forward, or was it a separate one? Remember we talked about right after the meeting? Because I think we missed, voting on it minutes.
For $10,000.
In my other notepad.
No, it'll be automatic. Yeah.
Why, we missed putting a meeting in?
I was right there, never mind. I didn't see him walk in. All right, we're all good.
I wonder why they passed me the gavel.
Yeah. Well, no, I thought he was gonna be running late. I think we're.
Yeah.
That's the issue. I was going to say something, but that has to do with attendance.
Yeah.
It changed.
Excellent.
It changed my landscape.
What do we now? Third spot.
Worcester's bigger.
May 2nd.
When do you look at what happened until what's happened?
7 o'clock.
I can't wait to read the postcard.
Yeah.
But 25 years ago, there was, this social emotional wasn't even,
No, it's good feedback, but that's why we gotta think of how to do it without.
We gotta talk to Dennis. Yeah. Setup. He's squishing us into.
Trying to get us against the wall.
Even thinner.
Huh? No one signed up? Okay. Which is? Oh yes, thank you. I was ready to go over, you know. Thank you. Let's see.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask for a moment of silence in memory of Gene Bailey, retired teacher who passed away on April 16th, 2019. Rosemary D. Foy, retired administrator who passed away on April 21st, 2019. Thank you. First on the agenda is the minutes. Joint Curriculum and Policy Subcommittee meeting of April 11, 2019.
I make a motion to approve the Joint Curriculum and Policy Subcommittee meeting on April 11, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The minutes are accepted. Seventh regular meeting on April 11, 2019.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are accepted. And seventh regular meeting of the executive session on April 11, 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The minutes are accepted. Next on the agenda are presentations, and the first presentation tonight is recycling grant application and school events from Jacqueline Culwell, who's the recycling coordinator. I asked Jacqueline to come forward, and I've had a chance to go through some of this with her and the good work she's doing, and she's here tonight to talk about what's happening and what we can do in the schools. So, Jacqueline, welcome. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. So, very briefly, Mayor McGee and I have discussed some of my plans for the recycling program. I'm not going to talk too much about the curbside regulations and enforcement because it's not the primary focus of the school committee meeting. But I did give you some information on page 1. Essentially, the school recycling grant will kind of commingle with how curbside collection happens. So curbside collection, we're serviced by waste management, we have a toter system, and the materials that we collect are metal, plastics, paper, cardboard, bottles, tins, jugs, plastic, all that kind of stuff, glass. And over the course of the last 3 years, it'll be 3 years now, you know, the city has worked extremely hard to reduce contamination in the curbside collection stream. What I have noticed is that the schools primarily recycle their cardboard and toters and paper and toters, and the bottles and cans and jugs and plastic bottles, at least from when I was there, were just kind of thrown in to the mix, and it disappeared wherever it went. And that's something that I've noticed watching the bins get picked up. So on my radar to kind of make things better, kind of keep up with green energy, cleaning up the city, really enforcing recycling all-wide, school-wide, citywide, and unifying our curbside program to kind of allow it to trickle down in the schools. Mass DEP has offered in the past a school recycling grant. And so what that will do is provide the city with money funded through the grant to expand on the small program that we already have in the schools. So I previously mentioned that the schools recycle the cardboard and the paper. The grant would allow the schools to then recycle their bottles, cans, whatever else is kind of in that mix as well to keep everything organized. The grant would also allow for, money to staff if, somebody else is to be hired just to facilitate the program. Normally, the way that other cities and towns do it, and I've heard from Mass DEP, I've done a lot of research, I've spoken to the woman who oversees the grant, is that the existing waste reduction enforcement coordinator or the existing recycling coordinator just kind of facilitates the program and, coordinates and works alongside school committee members, building managers, facilities directors. The fire chief needs to be involved. There's a couple other people that kind of need to get their signatures on documents so that we can present to DEP that we're serious about doing this, and also to keep the grant sustainable after the 3 years. Part of the grant is refunded for 3 years, and after the 3 years, they want to see that we, are going to make an effort to continue with the program. All of that will only come with applying, presenting a recycling policy in which we would adopt that. That's on page 4. I gave you guys a brief glimpse at that because if that is something that I draft that is willingly and acceptedly signed, that would apply, make us an applicable favorable kind of outcome. They would consider us a little bit more serious on doing this. So that's on page 4. The language is pretty basic, but we can kind of change that up and adopt it to what the needs of the city, or the schools kind of desire it to be. So the grant overview, it's really simple in a nutshell. It is going to give us $100,000 based on school population size. And so that's how they kind of funnel their money. They figure out what the enrollment is in public schools. And they match you up with an amount. And so based on our school size population, we're eligible for up to $100,000. And obviously that $100,000 would be split across 3 years. And so it's not an unreasonable amount of money for the school size, but it's also not non-attainable. And that would require just a minor budget planning on my part, figuring out what materials we need in terms of extra toters for outside collection for curbside from the trucks, bins in the classroom, whether we want educational materials, we want every school to have a banner, we want every school to have like a sandwich board or something that says, now we can recycle all of this stuff, whether it's to facilitate kind of classroom recycling education. It really is going to be up to, me, up to us, up to really the schools on how they want to do this. So really what the most important part is that we need a written letter of commitment, and they have a template that I've already looked at. It's very basic, just like the school recycling policy is. All we'd have to do is figure out whose signature needs to be on it. It just shows that we are committed to doing this program through DEP, that we're willing to not only enforce school recycling, but also enforce the education, because with enforcement of how to recycle comes questions about what can be recycled and why recycling in the schools is not the same as recycling curbside. All of these questions I have small answers to. So prior to expending any funds getting accepted, like I previously said, the school recycling policy is something that DEP is really, they think it's kind of like the cherry on top before the cake is even baked. And on page 3, which I've included for you all to look at, So the Green Team is an organization, it's free. There's no catch-22 to participate in being a Green Team. It's not for the city as a whole. It can be for individual classrooms, individual teachers. It could be for one school. You don't have to have the entire school sign up. It could be a teacher from a school, and that would be considered the school as part of the Green Team. What that does is it just provides evaluation criteria for Mass DEP. It makes it a little bit easier for our application to kind of slip through the accepted pile. But it also gives educational materials to classrooms. They're eligible for prizes. They can participate in different functions and educational workshops. The prizes range from bookmarks to bracelets to book covers to concerts about recycling and education. And it is free to participate in. I did a little bit of research on that, and it's not hard to sign up. I would be more than happy to help any teacher or classroom or school that is interested in doing that. With the recycling policy, it goes hand in hand. If there are green teams already established that are willing to do, projects or have a classroom based on a strict green team thing or recycling, the application is considered more favorable. The reason why I think it's a good idea is because currently there are no green teams in Lynn, and we are a community that is surrounded by other communities that are doing other things. We're doing the Recycling IQ program. We're also surrounded by communities who do the Recycling IQ program. We are participating in Dumpster Day, other communities who do Dumpster Day. So we're not on the back end of, stepping up to the plate, but I'm not sure if it's something that was ever brought up, and the grant brings it up, and I think it's kind of a wonderful idea to step into. So, I mean, really briefly, that's it. Mayor McGee and I had a quick discussion about this. So I have left that 4-page quickly, and I will answer any questions that I can answer.
Right. Before we get to the questions, Jacqueline, I want to thank you. And, we actually were meeting recently, and Lynn actually is making great progress, but it's really important to understand, and I think, the meetings are televised, so it's another opportunity to say on the curbside recycling, the clean is really an important piece of it, and making sure that the recycling is those pieces of trash that we can be recycled, or it creates a big problem. And then we have made substantial progress. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did include just very brief information on curbside collection and the kind of wow factor that we accomplished last year. But like I said previously, this is not about curbside for residentials. But we had a contamination rate in April of last year of 35.6%. And with the work of the team, 16-week program with the team facilitated by myself, a team supervisor, and a small team, they go out and enforce curbside collection of every route. So 5 days of Blue Week, 5 days of Green Week. There's about 500 to 700 households a day that are checked, and that contamination was spread out across the routes in different areas of the city and was dropped to 14% citywide. It takes a little bit more statistical analysis to figure out exactly how far the contamination drops per each, neighborhood. But we also saw within contamination dropping along the routes that people put their bins out more people were recycling. It becomes an easier conversation. People understand a little bit more that it is easy, it is attainable to recycle clean. It's the rule is clean and dry. It's very simple, and people have figured out, that it can be simple. So I think really the shining star of the Recycling IQ kit has provided a lot more open doors into just talking about recycling in other sectors of the city and how to unify the recycling rules. And, like I said, I've seen the schools only recycle their bulk cardboard, and that's great, and the paper, and that's all great, but my concern is always, where's the rest of it going, and why is it not, we can't expect you to have 8 toters at Classical and then try to fit all of those bottles and cans, and the grant really does a good job of allowing the resources to be spread out for the school so that they can recycle the way that everybody else recycles. We can't expect the conversation about recycling to be easy if we're recycling at home one way, and then they're going to school and recycling completely different.
And just one final point, I think that's the point I really wanted to make, is students that we're asking about recycling, so when they can go to school and understand it, and we create another program, which I think that's why we're here tonight. Absolutely. Then the students understand early on what it means, clean recycling, how important it is. And the bottom line is it saves the city money. If we can, the lower we can get down on the recycling and increase it with the least amount of contamination, it's really, everybody benefits in the community. So
we'll see a change, I think, in the continued contamination decrease if the conversation is then brought into the schools, and, you know, this gives opportunity for me to go in and say, you know, we're doing this recycling program here, but don't forget, like, you know, we're also doing a recycling program at the curb too, and it just kind of, you know, has more question weight, you know, and the answers are there because I've done the research and I have the capabilities to kind of get in contact with the people who are willing to help us as a city, kind of do the things right.
So I'm going to go to Member Castellanos, Member Satterwhite, then Member Gately.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate it. You're really passionate about it. I can see the work that you do and your passion. It's important work. We just actually had a initiative recently about littering and recycling. I got to go over to Ingalls Elementary School to tell kids don't be a litter bug.
I saw that Brian Field was in on that too as well.
We had everyone. We were all apart, and and Brian and everyone here got to go see the second graders across the district. And I really, after that experience, I really thought about you know what we could do moving forward about waste reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, energy conservation, and pollution prevention. We have the food project that came today. We got to see what they're about. I have a lot of constituents who reach out to me consistently. That's why I'm here, for my constituents who I represent. And I think a lot of what the green team, what you highlighted in the end there, is very important. That we don't. I can't believe that we don't have.
I had to look it up to confirm.
So there are no schools.
I don't wanna give you false information,
okay.
But on their website you can go look and see what schools in Massachusetts are participating, and Lynn is not on the list.
Okay, and that's I definitely see the urgency and the support, and I do support. You know, if we're looking to be competitive in this application, I think I agree. You have to get out there. We gotta, and I appreciate the transparency in your proposal. But what grade levels do you think? What grade levels are being offered for
the green team?
Yeah,
it's a K through 12.
Okay.
You know, it's offered depending on who's interested. Really, you just say, you know, Lincoln Thompson, for example. You know, there you've got kindergarten, fifth grade. Obviously, the fifth graders are older, but anybody can participate, and the awards are based on levels, so it kind of separates, I think, age group. I didn't do too much looking into the statistics of like age versus, you know, how to participate in the green team. But it is a K through 12 acceptance, you know, offering, and like I said, it's not something that every classroom in every school has to do. It could be one classroom representation from each school. It could be two. It could be just a teacher who signs up, and if one teacher, you know, does it, then it puts Lynn on the list of, you know, Lynn's a green team.
No, and that kind of goes into effective partnerships. You know, I think creating that eligibility is very important, because what this could do is open up bigger doors. And I think what we look at when it comes to grant, you know, the grant process, is how to locate the grants, right, and being eligible. And I think this is a really key opportunity for the city of Lynn. And we've had multiple presentations based off, you know, going green, environmental protective you know, changes, which are very important, and they tie on to larger grants and funding, which is very vital right now.
It's definitely something that is really important across. I think Massachusetts has been a real spearhead for going green in many different ways. But the green teams it's really just like an educational initiative, and what it does is once you sign up, you are immediately sent a free kit on how to, like, what you can do, how to do things. And I think there's probably a process where you say, I'm a 12th grade teacher who is an English teacher, and then the materials are based on, you know, okay, we've got seniors that we need to give these things to, so what can seniors do, and why are seniors going to do this, and kindergartners are going to do this? Because obviously we can't be giving a project to seniors and expect kindergartners to do the same thing. So I think that there's more to it, but I just wanted to give you like a really quick idea on why it's important, because it ties into the entire you know, use of funds with the grant, the overview of the grant, and it also just establishes us kind of at the forefront along with the recycling policy that we would adopt. Just makes the application process.
Member Satterwhite.
Thank you. So I know that when Mayor McGee was elected, and we had discussions about what our vision was for the city, and one of the things that was put out there was the collaboration between just the working parts of the government.
Right.
You know, when Brian Field got on board with the subcommittee for littering and for recycling, that was great. So that showed that the council side had a vision on a safe clean and green city. The capital investment plan that was presented to us a couple months ago by the mayor, again, had an emphasis on a safe, clean and green city, and I think that the school department and the school administration should follow suit as well. I think some of the questions that I had were, so we create the policy, and then Dr. Tutwiler would then create a district-wide procedure with regards to how it's going to be enforced?
So all of the, are you looking at like the overview section of the grant? Or is that just a general question that you have?
It's a general question.
So what happens is we would use, I mean, we don't have to use the template that DEP provides, but they give us all of the materials necessary to apply for whatever their grants are. Their grants aren't something where somebody has to write, 20 pages on why we need this or essays. It's just strictly like they give you what you want, what they're looking for. There's no kind of tricks or trades to what they want. They kind of show you, and really what they're all about is the willingness to just facilitate the program. So all of that needs to be done in terms of documentation is the mandatory recycling policy and a letter of commitment.
I understand that part. My question was then the part of enforcing the policy. Typically, it would be sent to the superintendent, who would then create procedures.
Right.
You're saying that there are materials that are available for him or the administration to look at and say, okay, these are easy fixes to get the procedures in place.
What we would do is you apply, and then once we're awarded whatever we're awarded, then it becomes a plan of how, if I'm the one to do this, oversee this, which is typically how communities have done it, then I would just create kind of the plan on what's going to be recycled, how it's going to be recycled, what classrooms are going to recycle where it's going to go, how we're going to implement the policy, plan the budget for what's going to be spent. So there's nothing super complicated, I guess, about it. It's just more about once we figure out what the road is, then they're going to communicate more with whoever's facilitating the program on what they're required to do.
Do you know what other communities, what the impact was on the janitors and lunch aides in those?
I know that Salem had just signed on to use this grant and do this grant. I'm pretty sure they were awarded something. I'm not sure what it was. I haven't gotten in contact with the Salem recycling coordinator yet, but I was told that I should because it's a similar size community closer to us with interest in other kind of areas that we're also interested in, recycling IQ and other grants. But as far as I know, speaking with DEP prior to this yesterday, there hasn't been any pushback or any complicated conversations between like facilities and managers and the school or custodians. It hasn't created any problems on workload or things like that. It just, from what I heard, it streamlines the process, and especially with bulk pickup of trash, it kind of separates the weight of that, and essentially that is part of what they want to see as the grant. Part of it, something that we have to do is track statistical data, and the only thing that we can track is the weight in which the school is recycling output.
Right.
So if the weight right now includes the bottles, the cans, the plastics, the glass, whatever is inside that is not being recycled, and that's heavy now, the goal is obviously to see that weight go down, so that's what we would.
And there'll be training for the people that are involved, correct?
Right, and there's mandatory training, I believe on, I think page 3, I said that there's, attendance by facility staff, business managers, administrators, whoever is going to be involved or needs to be involved, and that'll come from DEP, kind of the for sure answer. There's mandatory trainings that will be given based on, planning sites walkthroughs. We're eligible to have somebody from DEP who knows how to walk through the schools, how to present the information, show us what's going to be done and how they expect us to manage the program.
Perfect. Thank you for answering all my questions.
I hope I did an okay job. I tried.
You did a wonderful job.
I had enough information. I know that I'm not a DEP rep, so anything that you have that I can't answer, I will do my best to get that answer.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Superintendent Tutwiler.
Yeah,
then we'll
just quickly, reading the template example, what's required of the schools is not, in this template, is not too much of a departure from what exists currently.
Okay.
And so none of this worries me. I mean, there are conversations happening in and around the schools relative to recycling, and we do generate, unfortunately, a lot of paper that needs to be recycled, cardboard. Less so in the area of cans and bottles, just because not something that there's an abundance of in the schools. But I think the real win with this is the green teams, the student groups that will be, for lack of better expression, sort of the ambassadors of spirit around this initiative at each individual school.
Yeah, that's
So,
exactly right. You hit that one.
Member Gately, and then Member Capola.
Well, I was wondering, and sort of Dr. Tutwiler already mentioned it, about the cans and bottles. Like, coming from the school perspective, I have a bin, and students walk through, and if they have a bottle, the water container, they just dump it in, they dump in the paper. Are they going to give us separate containers, like, so you could have in the hallway maybe a water in a cans, but we don't have cans, except maybe teachers do, so you can put them in a bottle container.
This would definitely be something that I would probably approach in terms of a way in which to walk through the schools to see kind of individually how the classrooms are doing what they're doing, and then follow a bin from the classroom to how it's leaving the school, and see where the separation is where the separation needs to be more concrete.
Yep.
But the grant gives us the $100,000 to spend throughout 3 years, and that is used to buy any type of a bin sized for classrooms, or if it's just bigger bins or toters. Whatever it may be, and if that is, if the conversation is desired between classrooms, between schools, between, whoever thinks it's a good idea to separate the recycling from bin of, here's just where the paper goes, here, just where the bottle goes. I mean, it's not something that they would ever say no about. It probably would make the process of getting the recycling out probably a little bit more.
The other thing is, if you're going to track them, you want to go at the end of the school year when everybody's cleaning their rooms and getting all that paper out, because that's a huge number of a lot of weight.
It's been a while since I've been back in a public high school. I've graduated college, so it's been a long time. I don't know how much has changed, but I'm sure not much, considering that everybody still has the blue classroom bin size.
Yes.
Right? I would assume that the way in which they recycle now is not that different from the way curbside is single stream. It's probably like single stream in the classroom. It would probably be a cool idea to have the bins for bottles and cans that have the holes in it, just to keep the liquid and things out, and whatever may come of that. But for sure, they could be different colors. They could be whatever we want. It's just about how we're going to do it.
Yep.
What's going to make sense for the schools as a whole.
Great job. Thank you.
Member Capola.
Budget-wise, have you come up with an idea? I mean, I'm for it 100%, but I think it's great, and I'm sure we've already started in our schools in different ways. We just never applied for it. But the $100,000 goes over 3 years. So, and you were talking about a staff person,
right?
So now you're down to
that's just an option that they give based on time commitment that it would really take. And as far as I've heard from DEP, they're not worried about the way in which we would implement this program, considering how well we've already implemented the Recycling IQ Kit. And I don't know if that's a reflection on me, because I've only been doing this since last April, but it's not something that I'm too worried about trying to facilitate, only because I'm a public school graduate. I have an idea of how I would have wanted to recycle better when I was there, hoping that my wish I could bring that in. They just give you options and quick ideas on what you can do. The staffing isn't required.
So you're saying probably part of your job would be that staff person?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something.
Because the containers, if we don't have enough containers, and the equipment could take up a bulk of the money too.
And the equipment ranges from, like I said, classroom bins to dollies to move the equipment, to how to load, or bins on wheels. I think it's kind of just whatever can make it efficient.
And the composting that they have in there on that also. So, I mean, is this an attraction for rats or?
No, the point on the composting that they made within the grant, and they kind of made it really easy for me to understand, is that they welcome the idea of school-wide composting, but they want you to start off slow, and they kind of say go with the school recycling grant. If you're going to do it that way, and then you put your foot through the door of composting.
Okay.
If that's something that schools are willing to do or want to do, or anybody has a desire to facilitate that in the schools, because there is a separate grant that is all about organics recycling, and it's kind of filtered between residential and whatever other major facilities within a city or municipality are interested in doing.
Okay, thank you.
Member Nicholson.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for your initiative on this. It sounds great. The question I had, was about the template example policy, and maybe Dr. Tawala, you can help with this as well. But I was curious about the system to document recycling amounts. Do we already have that data, and then we just need a system to document it, or is that something we have to start now measuring, and how would we go about doing that? Yeah.
You give me a look, I'm not sure if I.
You have an answer? I don't have an answer.
I think the answer that I had, I think you had the one that, or maybe it was.
It was, yeah.
Was it you? All right. The system to document recycling amounts will be created and implemented, so they gave me an idea on what that means, and that's essentially starting with what the weight is before we start with the grant, like what the weight is of recycling, so what the school individually, what the schools exhaust in terms of how heavy their recycling load is. And that's something that would be very easy to get information from Waste Management, because they're our hauler, so they pick up our recycling at the schools. So all I need to do is get, like a general percentage sum, and then just track what happens to that amount when the grant is.
So Waste Management has that data.
They probably do, yeah. I'm assuming that depending on how often they pick up, which the schools are picked up weekly, it wouldn't be that hard to narrow down the routes that the pickups are from and separate the load amounts. I mean, they do that when we do an audit for our own curbside collection. They narrow it down to literally a street, and they can tell me exactly what the contamination percent is from that street. So I don't assume it would be that hard.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Ford?
Yeah, this is just something that pertains as much to the city as it does to the schools. There was a segment on the news today about how a lot of communities now are starting to lose all their savings because of contamination.
That's right.
And it's stepped up activities to inspect barrels, and I think maybe it's an opportunity to re-educate the people as to what, how they properly should be segregating their trash.
You're right.
We're gonna start tagging barrels, and, that's gonna bring, animosity. I think if we educate them up front, it might be something that would.
It's a great question, I think, John. You want to just briefly speak to what the grant we got in terms of the
Recycling IQ program?
so that we're actually doing that in the city, and it's been much less controversial
Right.
than I think you'd anticipate. So you want to just talk to it quickly, Jacqueline, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the initial kind of pushback, if there is anyone in a community adopts an enforcement program, and one that's very as strict as DEP presents with the Recycling IQ Kit and the partnership with recycling, is that people are, going to get very angry that there is a team of people in, visor, yellow jackets, checking bins and turning them around and telling the trucks, don't pick it up if there's a tag on it. So essentially, what the team does from May to about August, there's a team that's led by a supervisor. There's about 4 members on the team plus a supervisor and myself who runs the program. They go out, they check every bin that's out at the curb, and if there is anything in that bin that is not supposed to be in there, and we have a list. So it should be clothes, bags, food, tanglers, closet hangers, ropes, chains, styrofoam, furniture, whatever, and we've seen it all. That bin is immediately rejected, turned around, pick up weights the next time your pickup is. So it's a week and a half, essentially almost 2 weeks. And the hope is that when we return on your next blue or green week, whatever it may be, that thing that we saw that last time is not there. And if it's there, you get rejected again. And so what happens is the conversation really, at first, people are adverse to it, but they really catch on and they start to understand. And what that does is it actually opens the door for why we can't recycle that thing and not just you can't do it. The conversation doesn't stop from us enforcing it and saying, that's a no. It turns into this is why it's a no. And people start to understand that their habits at home affect, all of the things that they do and how they dispose of waste or reuse or regenerate, whatever it is. And so once the bin is rejected, it's not picked up. Like I said, the hope is we go back, it's different. If it's not, by the 3rd time, there's a letter that's sent home saying, it's been 5 times that we've been at this address, however many times it's been. The next time we show up, a ticket is kind of going to be presented if you're not going to fix it. And so that's the next step when necessary. Fines have been given out. But it's really a warning-based system, but it's all about education and combined enforcement. And what that's done is it's policed what we're seeing individual homes putting right in their recycling bin. It's also shown us that the weight has there's a problem with weight in terms of trash versus recycling. it's shown us that the items that people are recycling are really not that, it's not that surprising that there's confusion on what can and cannot be put in recycling bins. And so I guess really the big picture is that it's just really opened up the door for communication. And so once the program's over during the summer, I take a couple weeks to kind of lay loose on the program. It's just ended. I have all this data compiled because there's a lot of hoops to jump through for Mass DEP to get the final report out and show DEP that we've done such a great job. Look at the results, and then I start right up again, going out myself, following the same route. I'll do it. I'll do it in September. I'll go back to the routes we did this summer. I'll go back to the routes we did last summer. I'll go back to the routes we did in 2017. And it's just about keeping people informed. Just because the team's gone, it doesn't mean that the ticketing or the oops tagging stops. Because uniformity is really important, and getting people to understand the message is not going to disappear just because there's not a team of 5 people. And I think that that's part of what I do. I feel very lucky to do it. I love doing it, and I'm not adverse to having conversations in any way, shape, or form on why it is we can't recycle that thing. And I mean, I haven't seen anything that surprised me yet, so it's still exciting,
Again,
We've done a decent job.
I think the point's well taken, the education in the schools and what we're talking about today, and then the great results in terms of the IQ program and the grant we got going to 14%. And then I think the ultimate message is the lower we can bring down our weight and make it less contaminated, the more value there is in terms of how we're going to, the cost to the community. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal. So,
big picture too, I'll just add so that it's not something that is unknown, is that we're not the only community or municipality or city in a state. We're not even the only state that currently is having to battle between the amount that we're paying that's translating into how much money we end up paying for contaminated recycling. The contamination is not a state issue, it's an entire world issue, and it's kind of just facilitated different states to, act differently. You know what I mean? And Massachusetts has been, like I said, a spearhead on the forefront of trying to clean up not just recycling, but energy usage and things like that. And really where the results matter is when states see communities like Lynn, communities like Salem, communities like Lowell, when they're taking charge of something and they're saying this is a problem, this is something that we need to address, and we're going to find a way to address it. And then once the thing is addressed, the results are shiny and brand new and good. And really, the Recycling IQ Kit is a really wonderful thing that I think a lot of cities and communities have adopted, and it's done a really great job of showing people that Lynn is really serious, but also just that Lynn has the education and we're willing to share that education. And that's one of the things that really stuck out to me about the school recycling grant, because I think I've mentioned this to you, Mary. The kids are where it's at for me. I love to just speak to kids about things. I love when the kids come out of their house and they're like, what are you doing, when their parents don't come out, but they're more excited about this the yellow coat and they want to know what the heck I'm doing there. And so the kids, they get it. And that's the really important thing, is they really do get it. I just don't know if they're really sure that they know that they get it. And this would kind of give them that opportunity to take their own pride in having their own conversation with somebody else.
I'd like to make a motion the Lynn Public Schools adopt a mandatory recycling policy for the schools.
Second.
I don't know if we need a roll call. John? Before, there's some discussion at this point. There's a motion on the floor.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that this is something that Dr. Tutwiler was in favor of, and then I was going to ask what Donna did. So.
Yep, good. And so there's a motion on the floor, and it's a roll call required.
Can I say
yep. Go ahead, Member Nicholson.
Yeah,
please speak to it.
Yeah, if we're adopting a policy, can we do this under the presentation section?
That's a good question.
It's on the agenda.
If it's on the agenda, we can.
Okay.
There's no issues, right? Yeah. Any other discussion?
Does it have to be read in to the minutes like typical policies?
And we're doing the template example word for word.
That's up to you guys. I left it open as policy wording can be changed. So if there's anything in there that you guys don't like the wording of, I will change it so that it is acceptable for all of you.
What we could
have to believe.
There's two ways we could go. We could adopt the language as is, or we could put it on for 2 weeks from now and just get a chance to review it and make sure and vote it at that point. It seems to me looks like unanimous support for it.
There's support for the for the template language as well, there's just, I see a spelling error on one word.
Yeah, so, yes, Member Castellano.
When is the deadline?
So the deadline to apply for the grant is June 13th. So there's like six weeks. But once I kind of cross off the things that I already have, it makes applying that much easier. And this is one of the things that we don't already have yet. But
This is one of the most important things.
Well, check marks.
This is the vital thing.
So would it be
There's a meeting on May 30th. So if we wanted to wait, or if we felt
That's only 2 weeks for her to.
unless we wanted to accept it tonight, I mean, we can.
I'm ready to accept.
I'm ready to.
Okay.
Should it be read in, though? That's I think the question.
Give that to Nancy, so say.
Well, it doesn't hurt if you'd like to read it. Our Member Capola made the motion. Would you like to read it, Member Capola?
Okay, yeah, the school committee of the city of Lynn believes it to be our responsibility to make our students and staff aware of the importance of recycling materials whenever possible to conserve the world's limited resources and conserve energy while exercising sound financial practices. To this end, all Lynn public schools will recycle material that would otherwise become waste, including paper, cardboard, bottles, and cans, from throughout the school buildings and grounds in support of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's waste ban, which prohibits disposal of recyclable paper, cardboard, and paperboard, glass, and metal containers, and single-resin, narrow-necked plastics. The implementation of this policy is the responsibility of the school committee staff and students. Success in reducing waste through recycling is based on the cooperation of all the individuals in the school community. To ensure success in the district's recycling efforts, the following areas will be adopted. 1. All district personnel are expected to support recycling efforts throughout the schools. 2. A system to document recycling amounts will be created and implemented. 3. Teachers are encouraged to include educational lessons on recycling in the curriculum where appropriate. The Lynn School Committee directs the superintendent and his agent to implement a materials recycling program in the Lynn schools.
Motion and second and on the floor. Roll call is required.
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Mr. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Good
Jackie.
job.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation.
great.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an update on the dual language education.
Yeah, so some really exciting work is happening in our English Learner Education Office under the expert direction of Rania Caldwell. She would like to update you on some of the things that are going on, and with her is Phyllis Hardy, who I understand did a wonderful presentation during the April vacation, and I see my friend Janetta Leedy over there, always a friend to the Lynn Public Schools. So I'll turn it over to Rania.
Good evening.
Do you want the light off?
Just the front.
Just the first one. Listen, the light, the first switch.
No. Thank you.
No,
Oh.
the other one. I had to make sure that the board was turning on because I'm slightly height challenged, so I had to use the marker to turn it on. Thank you. We're happy to be here today to give you some updates. As Dr. Tutwiler said, this is Phyllis Hardy. She is the executive director of MABE, which is the Multi-State Association for Bilingual Education Northeast. She's going to jump in to really talk through dual language education in terms of what it is, the national picture, the local picture. But I want to frame that in the context of how we sort of got here, which is through the Look Act, which we've discussed before, which was passed in November of 2017. So I have a few slides just to talk through the work that we've done in Lynn in regards to the Look Act. And then I'll hand it over to Phyllis to really jump into dual language education, what that is, what that looks like, and where we're going in Lynn with it. So the first slide, we just wanted to highlight some of the work we're doing in terms of the Look Act this year. And that includes the EL Advisory Council,
the seal of biliteracy, and dual language education. So full implementation of Look is expected for all districts next year. These are components that we've done an enormous amount of work this year, and there's additional components for next year, but this is really the work we've zeroed in on for this year. So the first is the EL Advisory Council. We're excited that we had our first ELAC meeting last month. We had approximately 15 parents come for our English learner families. Dr. Tutwiler welcomed them, and we talked about our EL population, our EL programming, what services we provide to our English learners, and then we gave them a quick survey to sort of see what they are interested in terms of how we can support them as families of our ELs. Our next meeting is actually this coming Tuesday on May 7th, right in this room at 6 p.m. And then we have another one in June. The next piece is the seal of biliteracy, and we are really excited about this piece. The seal of biliteracy is a voluntary piece of the Look Act, and it's not required by districts, but districts can volunteer to partake. When this came across our desks, Dr. Tutwiler was extremely excited to have that in the city of Lynn and offer it to our students. It's a way to recognize our kids for what they bring to the table, the assets that they bring to the table as bilingual children in our school systems. As of 2 days ago, we had 48 students who met the requirements to earn the seal of biliteracy, which means that they achieved a minimum score of intermediate high on a world language assessment, as well as meeting graduation requirements. It's like talking a lot, I'm a little nervous. In my office, Stacy Floyd has been spearheading the seal of biliteracy at the high schools. We offered it to our seniors this year, and she's been working diligently they take a computer-based test, and then for our low incidence languages, students have to call on the phone to do an oral proficiency interview. They have a writing prompt. Other students have to do portfolios. So there are various ways students can demonstrate their bilingualism and biliteracy. 2 days ago, we had 48 students who met that criteria. Today, we have 60.
Wow.
Right? So, because we're still catching some kids. So we're all the way up to 60, and 4 of those students have met the criteria for what the department has as the seal of biliteracy with distinction. Those students have received an advanced low score and at least a 260 on the ELA MCAS. So that's really exciting. So we plan on recognizing them in a number of ways. We got them silver cords to wear at graduation so they can be recognized as a group at each of their respective graduations. We plan on giving them a certificate of achievement with a seal sticker on it, having them come here on June 13th during the school committee meeting to really recognize recognize what they're bringing as getting the seal. And then as part of the law, we imprint the seal on their transcript so that they have it as evidence that they are indeed bilingual and biliterate when they graduate. So we're very excited about that. And then the other piece is dual language education. And in the Look Act allows districts to implement different programs for students to partake in terms of language acquisition. Since 2002, Lynn has done SEI, which is an English-only approach from question 2. In 2002, after the Look Act, Salem Public Schools contacted us, and we had that joint venture with that grant through DESE with Lynn. We were awarded that grant in January. As part of that grant, one of the provisions is that we apply for implementing a dual language program in Lynn for school year 2021, right? So September 20. It sounds, on paper, when you hear it, it's confusing. So we received that. We've done a lot of work. We want to give you an update on the work that's happened since we received those monies in January. Then Phyllis will give an overview of dual language and what that is, because it's much different than what we've experienced in this city for many, many, many years. Then when Phyllis completes her sort of overview, I want to just make sure you see sort of where our path is before school year 2020, and then jump into some of the data of our district and how it really lends itself to dual language. So just some quick updates on the work we've done in terms of the seed grant. We were awarded with Salem the max amount of $300,000 to really explore dual language, what it is, what it looks like, what it could look like in our respective districts, and to submit a proposal to have a program begin in September 2020. With that grant, we have worked very hard to bring in many different groups, including groups of teachers, group of administrators, building-based leaders, district-level administrators, to build their knowledge base and get excited about what dual language is. We've had numerous book studies. We've had people attend national and local conferences. We've visited local school districts who have had dual language with the waiver process since 2002, like Brockton, the Hernandez program in Boston, Umana, and we've partnered with Boston College as part of the grant to provide a layer of professional development, as well as to assist our teachers in obtaining the bilingual endorsement, which would be required of them in a dual language program on the Spanish side. Phyllis will talk about that a little bit. And then finally, we've partnered with a number of experts in the field to make sure that they can help us understand what dual language is, the way it's supposed to be, because we haven't done it for we've never done it in Lynn. And we want to make sure that we are doing it the right way, so we've made sure we've partnered with people like Phyllis to help us through, with Mabe, to help us through the process. So I'm going to turn it over to Phyllis. I can flip the
All right. Thank you for having me at this particular school committee meeting. Click. So I wanted to give you a picture of what's going on across the nation. Right now, there is a tremendous commitment to and growth of dual language programs. There are about 2,000 dual language programs across the country. But more important, there are states who are actually creating policies to implement these dual language programs. So for example, we have states like Utah and Delaware who have understood the value of language as a resource and are choosing to implement dual language education programs so that they can produce children who are ready for the global economy, are able to use their language skills and get a job in any language, in any culture, in any culture in any country. That's their rationale for having dual language programs. And then we have states like North Carolina and Oregon who are actively selecting to implement dual language programs in schools with high percentages of English learners, high percentages of low socioeconomic status students who are struggling schools. And in North Carolina, for example, there are now 175 programs across the state in 8 different languages. In Oregon, 10% of the students in public school, in elementary public schools, are now enrolled in dual language education programs. 10%. That's quite a lot when you think that this field has really been blossoming in the last maybe 10 years. So what about us now? What about in Massachusetts? We currently have 26 dual language programs in 11 different districts. Rania mentioned the word waiver. So previously, with the before the Look Act, if you had a bilingual program in our state, it had to be, the one program that was recognized was transitional bilingual education because it came from before question 2. And in that change of question 2 in 2002, districts had to have a waiver to implement or to continue holding that transitional bilingual education program. That was the majority program model in most of our districts in our state before 2002. By the time the Look Act passed, only three districts kept a transitional bilingual education program. They decided that they were going to go ahead and stay with the waiver process. That's different than dual language education, which never had a waiver process. It actually was always allowed, but people misunderstood that because of what happened with the transitional bilingual education program. So when the Look Act passed, and when Question 2 passed, actually, very next year, there was explicit language in the law that says dual language education is exempt from what transitional bilingual education is required to do. Misunderstood information. So consequently, there were really just a handful of districts and programs that existed even in that time period. I can tell you that of the three districts that continued with transitional bilingual education programs, they are now, all of them are converting or increasing the number of dual language programs, converting the TBE programs into dual language or increasing dual language programs in their school districts. So that's a very positive outcome of what's happening with the Look Act. It creates a bilingual education endorsement. It's finally acknowledging that teachers of dual language education programs have a specific set of competencies that is unique to working in this type of program. It is going to be a requirement for the teachers who work and give instruction in the partner language. In your district, you selected Spanish as the language to be the partner language. So those teachers will have to demonstrate specific competencies and pass a language proficiency assessment, just like the kids who earn the seal of biliteracy. They will have to do the same thing too. And then also show evidence of practice in a dual language program. The state seal of biliteracy is actually impacting dual language education programs as well, because the kids who come from dual language programs beginning in kindergarten, they actually get to the level of those 48 kids who earned this, the state seal of biliteracy at the intermediate high level. They get to that level usually by 8th grade. So you will have increased numbers of students getting the distinction award because they're coming through this program. So what is DESE doing? As Rania mentioned, they are giving out the seed grants, which is really helping build up the understanding of what is a dual language program, break down these misunderstood things from the past, and just get more people to think about committing and becoming committed to opening dual language programs. There has been a guidance for defining and implementing dual language programs that was written in 2016 and then immediately revised because of the Look Act to make sure that those things were reflected in that guidance document. That guidance document was also references the work of another revision that was done at the national level, which is Guiding Principles for Dual Language Education, developed by a series of groups, a series of national experts across the country, and produced by the Center for Applied Linguistics. The bilingual education endorsement, by the way, the competencies described of what a teacher should have comes from the National Dual Language Teacher Standards, which was released in 2018. So you can see how the nation's movement is affecting even our state and our different regional and district movements. And then DESE has provided us, granted MABE a contract to have a webinar, but we're actually making it a live panel presentation and a 2-day leadership training for any districts who are contemplating implementing a dual language program. So what is a dual language program? It's a program for all students, and I want to emphasize all students, that provides literacy and standards-based content instruction through 2 languages. I think the standards-based is something that people really have to understand because it's the same exact curriculum as mainstream students. It's taught in 2 languages. So it is for children who speak English only. It is for children who speak the partner language, and in this case, it's Spanish. It is for children who speak English and the partner language. or who are bilingual already and at all levels of bilingualism. It is for children with learning disabilities. I want to emphasize that in particular because there's a lot of questions about supporting students with disabilities or struggling students. They also can learn in dual language programs. It is for children who are gifted. It is for children who want to learn a third language. So it is for all types of dual students. The goals of the program are, we say there are 4 very specific goals. Grade level academic achievement, bilingualism and biliteracy. The students will, as the students who have earned the state seal of biliteracy, the students will be able to listen, speak, read, and write proficiently by the time they finish this program. So the difference between the students earning the state seal of biliteracy is that your students who are in this program will be doing math and science and history in these 2 languages. The world language students don't have to do all of that content area. They have to demonstrate proficiency in a functional way of communication. Social cultural competence is another example of a goal. When you bring 2 different groups of students together, English learners who bring their language and culture with English proficient students who bring their language and culture, you're bringing together 2 different cultures. You're helping them to understand each other's behaviors. There's much more appreciation for each other's cultures. There is also very specific skills like problem solving and conflict resolution and perspective taking that is part of the way we do instructional strategies in these programs. It really builds identity, understanding of who I am, in particular for the English learners who, truthfully, with the emphasis on English only, is making you feel, who am I really in this society? And then absolutely it is closing the achievement gap and eliminating educational disparities for English learners. And we'll share with you some of the research about that in a little while. Essential characteristics about the program, or what we call non-negotiables, is that literacy and content instruction has to happen through the 2 languages. There are different spaces, so you will either have be taught by one teacher in one language or another teacher in another language, or it could be by subject, by time. The fact is that you are not, we don't use translation as an instructional strategy, because if you think about it, if somebody translates for you, you just wait until they translate for you and not really work on learning the language. So the idea that you are being taught in 2 languages separately is very important for us, for the program model. It must extend for an extended, a period of time at minimum elementary. And that has been the major model in this state, elementary, until about 5 years ago when people really started to realize that going through a K-12 model would actually be more beneficial. And those programs that have been around for 20 some odd years are all moving to a K-12 model. And then the other part is 50 to 90% of daily instruction in the partner language. In this case, it would be Spanish. It looks a little bit different in K1 and 2, but by 3rd grade, everybody is receiving half of their day in Spanish and half of their day in English. And those decisions can be made later on with the team who actually implements the program. So, for students who possess a language other than English, these are the English learners that are part of your community. Now they're getting the message that the language that they bring is an asset. And they're able to share their asset with other students. They are being thought of as gifted, as emerging bilinguals. They are known to have and possess high levels of cognitive flexibility and problem-solving skills. They need accelerated instruction so that they can demonstrate what they can do in the languages and assets that they bring. The benefits for the families, as the quote says, these contexts nurture everyone. So families of The programs recognize the skills and strengths of the dual language families. The cultural events that happen organically because of the program model are a place for exchanging those skills and cultural differences and learnings across the cultures. Parents become great partners advocating for the program. There are much stronger homeschool connections. And for those parents who are minority parents, they finally feel welcome and are more willing to participate. When they walk into that school, there's Spanish spoken. There's cultural behavior going on normally throughout the day. So, of course, they're going to feel much more welcome. The research, there's a lot of research, and essentially the research is comparing students who are in dual language programs, who are enrolled in those programs, versus students who are enrolled in English approaches or mainstream programs. So when they look at the English learners who are enrolled in dual language programs, they find that they score significantly higher on state tests and norm reference tests, that they master much more curriculum, academically and linguistically, and they actually experience full gap closure. These students typically reach the reclassification stage of English learner to former English learner more quickly than others who are not in those programs. They also have been known to complete high school. Dropout is a huge issue for a lot of schools. This keeps students motivated to keep learning. We find that they have much more positive attitudes towards schools, and there's even some evidence that they typically will also take advanced placement classes, which is something that is pretty much inaccessible to many English learners. This is a graph that I want you to look at very closely, and this is my last slide, and then I'll take some questions from you. The bottom line you can see is by the different grades. So it's 1st through 11th grade. Each color is a different program, a different language instructional educational program, specifically for English learners. And you'll see that in 1st grade, everybody starts looking, all the programs look pretty good. And even in 3rd grade, you know, they're not that far apart. But after that, it changes drastically. And the model that is the most effective, that shows the students doing the best according to the standard assessment, are the two-way immersion. That's the blue line. So for students who can actually have that opportunity to go through up to 12th grade in that program, they exceed the 50th percentile for all students. So those programs bring together English learners and English proficient students to learn in the same environment. They're learning from each other, the language, the culture, but they're learning all academics together in the two languages. The content ELD, by the way, which is lighter, I guess it's more like a purple-blue. The blue at the bottom is typical, is another word for calling each other English instruction. You can see that the program model that we typically have in Massachusetts is second to worst from research of effectiveness for English learners. It's the closest to that style.
One year of instruction. Here in Massachusetts, they can't hear.
So questions?
Member Satterwhite.
Thank you for what we have thus far. What I'm excited about is there are states before us that have done it. There's data. There's obviously curriculum and whatnot that's used in those areas and states. So I'm not too frightened that we're not going to be able to jump into it. I did have a moment to speak briefly with a Spanish teacher at Lynn Tech last week, Miss Suarez, and she was ecstatic with regards to how many of her students got the biliteracy, and that excitement is something that I look forward to. You know, when a teacher is excited about what's going on in the schools, so it's great to hear feedback already, and it's great to see that we're at least partnering or receiving resources and education from Mabi, but specifically from you, obviously you're passionate about what you're talking about, and the details that you're given are over and above what's printed on the screen. So you obviously you're full of the knowledge. So it's the law, but the fact that we have to that we're planning and preparing in this fashion is encouraging, and I appreciate that.
Member Nicholson, then Member Castellanos.
Thank you. I totally agree how exciting the Seal of Bioliteracy is. That is a huge accomplishment for the district that we're offering it, and most importantly for those students who have been able to obtain that. And that's terrific that we're going to have a chance to celebrate them in June. I'm very excited about that. The question I had about the dual language program, and thank you for the overview. This is really helpful and sounds like a really exciting opportunity for the district to take advantage of. But just so to understand the data, presumably if ELs are ending up scoring higher on state tests and have a lower dropout rate, that means that their English proficiency is ultimately better than it otherwise would have been. Is that correct? Okay. That's great. And then is there also data on, so the idea with dual language is that you have ELs and you also have English-speaking students. What's the data like for the performance of those students in EL programs?
The English proficient students?
Sorry,
or the English learners?
for the English proficient students. What's the data? What's the research show how they perform in dual?
Just the same way that we showed in the graph.
So they're performing better as well.
Performing better as well.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
Member Castellanos.
Wonderful presentation, very informative. I really appreciate the national lens you provided. The insight's so valuable, especially when there's a high need. Whenever you can recognize students for their achievements, it's very important. And to get 60 is amazing. I can't wait to see is it silver? Is it a silver line? That's exciting. That's exciting whenever you walk across the stage and you get a little extra on you. It shows your hard work and dedication. You don't forget that, and it's definitely a spark to continue to, have that style of work ethic to self-improve. So for what I want to point out is the dual language education program goals. One of the most vital components of, I think, what really stood out to me was the social cultural competency. I think this is a vital competency to possess in our workforce, and to enhance, to have that ability to enhance our students, to give them that track system is very important. Not only to just closing the achievement gap, but to really to develop engagement. I think community engagement is vital, and I think that's a high need in our school district, also in the city. And I think when we look to I used to get criticized when I step out the States for being colorblind, because I grew up in Lynn. So being in Lynn, I can talk with anybody. I don't see myself as someone who would have those natural biases and default systems. But outside in the national lens, there's a lot of, the climate's very hot. And to have, to train, I feel so strongly that Lynn, Massachusetts, is going to be on the national map for the amount of diversity, inclusive students and children that we're going to produce. And I think we have the ability to really take what we have. When you say gift, we have a gift in Lynn, and we have many gifts, from class systems to racial, to socioeconomic, to the many opportunities that I've seen in our new social emotional learning capacities that we're going into, and to take what we have now and to really enhance the community that we need to. And it's inclusive, and I think what we have is going to be very special. It is special, and I'm excited to hear you talk about it and bring it up to us. And it's essential. I know when you bring it into the benefits from the family, it hits home. And I think building a stronger home connection is very important, and especially community-wise. Because I think if people start to unravel, what's really happening across the national lens, I think when they take a look at Lynn, they'll be very impressed with a lot of the people, what we do out here. So thank you, and I really appreciate your time today to express that.
Member Gately.
Ron, you did a great job on your presentation.
We're not quite done yet.
No, but I'm just saying, so Rania, because she was so nervous in the beginning, she was like, but a couple of things that I wanted to ask or point out, like Rania, in our EL populations in our high schools, is this moving towards helping them to become dual?
So what we're going to show you now is some demographic data.
Okay, so I have one other
So
question.
the questions were really more about my presentation, about dual language education.
Okay.
We have one more section to go through.
Okay. And the other thing is I had the opportunity to go over to Breed, and they have the National Junior Honor Society Spanish, right? I was like so impressed with so many of them. I think that we are going to have even like maybe 120 next year, maybe 175.
Or even at the high school level. We should have this everywhere.
No, but I'm just saying that this is coming, just like Brian was saying, I mean, Mr. Castellanos was saying, that this is moving, and it's a big wave, and I think that you, Manya, have been a big, huge impetus on this, and I'm so proud of both of you and Rania for bringing this to our city, with the help of the administration, of course, but I remember you at Thurgood Marshall, Rania, so I know how hard you have been fighting for this your whole life, and this is coming to fruition. So I hope after this you give yourself a nice pat in the back, because you're doing an excellent job. And I'm sorry if I'm interrupting this, but I had to tell you, phenomenal. I'm so happy, very happy.
Member
Thank you.
Satterwhite?
And just to, it's been almost 2 years, and a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about with regards to our issues with the EL population and the students that are struggling, this seems to be a wonderful fit to improve just the overall. It's a good solution in certain aspects of it. So as they're speaking and I'm looking at this data, all I can think about is how, when you said he was happy, I can only imagine how happy he was because he has to come to us with the data, and this goes to show that it's going to improve that data, and it's good.
So the other piece about the Look Act is that it's your decision, the superintendent and school committee's decision whether you implement a dual language program. And the law basically says that you should look at your demographic data, the interests of your family, and the current way your programs are meeting or not meeting the needs of your students. So I'm going to pass this on to Rania, who's going to show you some demographic data that is very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Before I jump into demographics, we just want to give you an overview of our planning timeline in terms of what we're going to do between now and September of 2020. Big picture, just so you sort of see the path that we're on. We've done a lot of that exploration and learning from this point on. In the summer, we plan on focusing heavily on professional development, foundational coursework through Boston College, and having our planning committee, which will be a group of teachers, administrators. We hope to get a parent member on board, building representatives to make real programmatic decisions at the more granular level of what this will look like in Lynn. Then in the fall of 2019, we'll submit our proposal. Our initial proposals due in November, and the final proposals due right at the beginning of the new year. In the winter of 2020, we plan on focusing heavily on curriculum development, mapping and planning how those two languages will bridge together and we'll be able to make connections. I'm a strong believer that we need to have very strong curricula to help our teachers in this process. The last thing we want to do is put teachers in a position where they don't have what they need. So we want to make sure that our alignment, our curriculum, our resources really support the implementation of this program, and we want to support them through the process. Then in the spring, we're going to prepare for registration for the incoming kindergarten class that will be entering into the dual language program that following year. In the summer, we'll fine-tune the program opening, what that looks like, making sure the environment is what we want it to be, PD, things of that nature. And then we have named our dual language program. I joke that it's our dual language baby. It keeps us up at night. We take care of it. So we have named our dual language program Compañeros, partner. We want this to be a partnership of kids, of language, of cultures, of the community. And we fell in love with the name Compañeros. So we're planning to open that program at Harrington School in September of 2020. And then when we talk about district demographics, when I looked at the demographic data, I live in this every day. I live with our EL numbers.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I looked at our demographic data in terms with the lens of dual language, because it really does demonstrate an ideal atmosphere or demographic for this type of program. So what we did was we took October SIMS data, so that's the report we submit to the Department of Education, on October 1st, 2016, 2017, 2018. So the first slide shows at the point of registration at kindergarten, what percentage of students are identified English learners and what percentage of students are not identified English learners. So if you look at October 2016, 29% of our students were identified as English learners, and in October 2018, that has gone up to 44%. And conversely, 70% were not identified as English learners, and that is down to 55%. So those two groups are really merging together to almost a 50-50 split. When we look at Harrington, when we were analyzing elementary school demographics, Harrington pretty much mirrors that exact demographic. They're actually even closer to 50-50. They're 51-49 at this point in time. And they have actually closed a larger gap from 2016 to this point, which, when you think over 3 years, that is a drastic change in demographics. And then we analyzed district home language, focusing on English and the partner language of our program, which is Spanish. At the district level, in 2018, Spanish has creeped slightly above English as home language in Lynn at 45.8, and English is at 45.4. So again, we're seeing a very even split of home language English, home language Spanish in our incoming kindergarten classes in Lynn. And at Harrington, this graphic is telling for a couple of reasons. One, you see that Spanish trajectory, very similar, right around that 50 percentile. What I find fascinating about this line graph is the English from 17 to 18 dips from 52% to 36%. But it's not because of a dramatic increase of Spanish. It's because of other languages of Spanish that are other than Spanish and English that are represented at Harrington School as well. So that accounts for that larger dip in the English, because the Spanish is pretty much on par with the other percentage is in the district. Yep. And then finally, we, as part of our grant, have incorporated a community event. So on May 21st, we're going to have a Compañeros dual language community event at Harrington School to try to build up, again, excitement. We're trying to get people excited about dual language, the community, families, teachers, administrators, school committee. We have a guest speaker coming, Alexandra Guillermo. We met her at the National Association for Bilingual Education when we attended a conference there. And she was the guest speaker at MABE, the keynote. I had the flu that day, so I couldn't go and watch her. But our teachers got to have lunch with her. They, love her. So she's coming to be a guest speaker. She's going to give a presentation in English and Spanish at that night, answer any questions. She's meeting with Lynn and Salem while she's here to talk with our respective districts about what our programs, where we are in our program development. So we're really excited about that dual language community night. The other thing, I just made a note as people were asking questions. I did also, before I jump into questions, wanted to just share, in terms of, I wrote some notes here, now I can't find them. The seal. What's been exciting, the teachers are excited, the kids are excited. And not only are the kids excited, the families are excited. Kids are talking to Stacy Floyd, who's doing much of the work out of my office, and saying, wow, I never get to show people how smart I am. Like, I'm so smart in my native country, and kids of languages that are not Spanish even feel more valued. Because many cases, you know, like we may send home translations in English and Spanish, but not necessarily in, you know, Khmer. Well, we send it in Khmer, so that's not a good example. Burmese, for example, our kids are getting opportunities to demonstrate their native language skills, and families are so excited they get a sense that their culture is being valued and their language is being valued. So it's really exciting. The other thing that excites me the most about dual language from an EL perspective is that it's inclusive. So for many years, our English learners would be separated. And they, you know, like they'd be, you know, they might be in a separate classroom. But this really gives an opportunity for all kids to learn two languages, because language is power. We're giving our kids two languages through dual language, and they're interacting, and they're building up that cultural confidence. And it's seen as an asset. Right? It's an asset-based philosophy of learning language. And the last point I just wanted to make is the teacher passion. We had a book study here yesterday. It was like our third session. We have Lynn and Salem teachers coming together for a teacher book study. They're so excited. And again, they're talking about things about sort of what assets we're giving our kids, what power we're giving kids for their futures, and tools that we're giving them by, in many cases, just acknowledging and working with what they're bringing to the table and building on what they're bringing. So I just wanted to emphasize those points as well.
Member Satterwhite?
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Lorraine had said earlier, but one just piece of advice. Obviously, you know Magali and at Breed, and she does the Marias. If you need help saving the date for multiple people, speak to her, because she can get a busload of people to come and support the community night. We're lucky to have member Nicholson on the school committee who speaks Spanish as well, and he does it fluently. And I'm very impressed when we're in areas where there are multiple Spanish-speaking people, and he communicates with them and enjoys in their culture. So we witness it here. And you know that's very impressive, and I need to work on my Spanish, but it's helped him drastically, and I think if students can see that it's helped someone that's actually at this table, it would be helpful as well. So one of the things that I'd like is I love the fact that we have the EL Advisory Council, that we're doing all these things to plan, but we sit there. I know the mayor came with me and Lorraine and Dr. Tutwiler to this Breed National Junior Honor Society induction, and it's a mixture of kids, literally. It's not all Spanish kids. It's literally a mixture of kids, and I'd like to see that somewhere in your plan where we will possibly do a similar club in Pickering and Marshall, possibly in high school levels, where, again, they have the seal of biliteracy, but they also have this honor society on their college applications too, because I know that we don't have that spread out throughout the district, and that's something that I'd like to see as well. But everything else is spot on, and I appreciate the information.
Any other questions? Member Gately?
I just want to mention to Dr. Satterwhite, Dr. Satterwhite,
JD, so sorry.
Attorney Satterwhite.
Worked hard to get it.
So I just want to mention to you that you have to have a special teacher. They move up, they step up, and they say, I want to take over the National Honor Society in Spanish, and maybe we will find those teachers as we move forward in this dual literacy. I loved it. Thank you.
With the excitement, definitely.
With the excitement, definitely.
Member Capola?
Now, every child that's going into Harrington in the kindergarten will participate in this? Or is it voluntary?
It's a voluntary opt-in program.
Okay.
That we have to work out the details, but typically other districts work on like a lottery-based system based on applications submitted, but it would be for District Harrington students.
Okay. And how many of the classrooms, how many kindergartens are there now, and how many of those would be participating?
So there are four kindergarten classrooms at Harrington, so we're envisioning 2 of them would be dual language classrooms.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Great job. Thank you.
Very good job. I'd like to clap.
Next on the agenda is the 2-3-day split.
Yeah. Do that.
You may need to do this.
Talk the entire time on this.
Switch.
Alicia Jameson. Felicia.
What's that? No pen necessary. No pen necessary. Ms. Jusson? Ms. Jusson? Do you mind the light?
Yes, Superintendent.
So, just quickly, we discussed informally in previous meetings interest in discussing the pre-K programming in the city, and I've asked Ms. Jamerson to prepare a presentation for you, giving you both the historical snapshot of the pre-K programming and how we got to where we are now, and then a balanced approach to understanding the pros and cons to the current model, which is the 2-day, 3-day, and versus the 5-day AM/PM. So I'll turn it over to her. And welcome. This is her first presentation.
Hear me? Okay. I talk loud.
Mic check.
So thank you for having me here. So you guys got some handouts prior to that explain this because it's a lot of information and there is a lot to understand and to dive into with this. So before I even get started, I do want to point out a correction that I need to make on one of the graphs. Just so as we're talking about it, you have that correction. So on this graph that says 17-18 school year, it's in the corner. On the first part where it says self-contained, so it says total 7 self-contained programs, the number is 63. That number should be 71 on the special ed numbers. And then where it says total number of students without the programs, that should be 63, not 55, sorry. I caught that today. So what I tried to do is I was asked to present, obviously, about things that happened prior to my arrival, so not really totally understanding all of the details on why all of the decisions were made. Kind of bottom line, it was for spacing. So just looking for space and dealing with, as we know, the space issues that we currently have in the district. So I was asked to kind of just come up with a flow of what it was and the progress and the moving. So that's why I created the graphs so we can get that visual of the programs that are created, and look at the numbers and the increase. So if you refer to your early childhood program overview, this one. That's the teacher, right? So it talks about what the self-contained programs are. Self-contained, our subset is what another word that we use. So ours for students with disabilities. the integrated programs are students with disabilities and students and regular educational students. And then the neighborhood were just, that program doesn't exist anymore, but the neighborhood program at the time was just for students without disabilities, just the regular students. And then just looking at the colors, breaks down the boxes, that's kind of self-explanatory, and then I'll get into the charts a little bit. But before we get into that, I kind of want to just look at the placement and just kind of give you a better understanding of how students are placed. I think this is where the confusion comes in, because it's different for the students who receive special educational services and the regular education students. So the self-contained students are obviously based on their need and what their IEP says. So they can start at age 3, because that's what the law says that they have to start. We have to start servicing them at age 3. And typically, for the 5-day full day program, there are 9 students in that class. And the 2-day, 3-day split holds 18 students because you're splitting it. So the 2 days would be the 9 students and the 3 days would be the 9 students. And those numbers are federal numbers that we have to follow, state guidelines. So how we typically move the students along in those programs, when the students come to us for 3, they typically will start in the 2-day program. And then these are just for the students who receive special educational services. They'll start in the 2-day program, then we try to move them to the 3-day program, and then right before they start kindergarten, into the 5 full-day program. But that's not saying every student gets those services, because obviously, depending on what they need, some kids come in and they just need more from the start. So we have to give them what they need. But we typically try to gradually move the students through getting that amount of time. For the integrated program, it's the same thing for the students who receive special educational services. They're placed in there based on their need, their IEP, what all that says. The regular education students are placed in that program at age 4. So they don't start at 3, they start at 4, and it's based on the lottery system. So they go through a lottery system and they're placed based on that. The neighborhood students, that started at 4 as well, and that was based on lottery as well. So some data about the program in early childhood. So just looking at some of the DIVLS data, and I kind of have a little bit of extra information to add in here. So when we're looking at this, the DIVLS data, this data was collected based on the students from year 16, 17 as they went into kindergarten. So the students, and that would typically obviously be the 4-year-olds, because you can't test the 3-year-olds because they're not in kindergarten. So that would be the 4-year-olds going into kindergarten. But these were only the students that had pre-K, because obviously all the students that start kindergarten aren't necessarily in our pre-K programs. So looking at this information, you can kind of see where for the first sound fluency, this test is done in the fall. So this is done in these numbers are from the fall DIVLS testing.
So, can I ask a question?
Member Gately?
So are they separated out, those that were in our pre-K and those that came in from other pre-Ks throughout the city? Are they separated out for these DIVLS scores? Like, do you know the ones that went to Joy? Do you know the ones that went to other private schools and they came in for kindergarten when you do your DIVLS?
So
Is this shown in this graph?
These are only the kids that we had in our pre-K programs.
Okay.
That, not any of the other kids, we didn't pull their information, it's only the kids, right, Jackie? Right, yeah, okay. So only the kids in our programs that we pulled this data from. Because it wouldn't have helped to pull it from.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was flawed.
Yeah, no. So, so when we're looking at this, there's the three bars, above average, average, below average, and then the first down fluency. So what I kind of did that I didn't put on there is I just added the numbers for the above average and the average. So we're looking at the DIVLS for the first sound fluency. The half day is 52.2% if you add above average and average. And then the below average is 47.8% of the students. So, and then when we're looking at the 2-day, and that was for the 5-day half day. And then we're looking at the 2-day, 3-day programs, 54.3, that's again averaging the above average and the average, adding them up, 54.3%, and the below average is 45.8%. So it's a difference of 2%. So I don't think that's a significant percentage, because when you look at error, it's not a huge, and it's only comparing 1 year. And typically when you're doing data and research, 1 year of data is not really enough, because there's a lot of factors that could play into that. And then looking at the letter naming fluency, so 67.3% are for the half-day programs are above average, and then the 32.7 are below. And then for the 2-day, 3-day, 68.6% are above, are at average or above, and then 31% are below. And the attendance, you can see there's not a huge difference in the attendance as well. We're only looking at maybe a 5%. The students in the 2-day, 3-day attended school at a rate of 5% better than the 5-day, half-day. So looking at the pros and cons of this program, so what we did is within our office, we talked about the pros and the cons, and just things that my program specialists have heard as they're out on the campus and talking to the teachers along, and just the experience in the field and over the years. And then also we called some of the teachers that, we try to call teachers that did both programs to try to get the feel of, okay, they've done both, they've done the 2-day, 3-day, and the 5-day, and try to get the teachers of those, the experience of those teachers, and just some of the inputs as the pros and cons. So the 2-day, 3-day, you guys can see that it builds stamina for the students because it's a long day. It creates less childcare issue for the parents. So when I'm saying childcare issues for the parents for the 2-day, 3-day, so a lot of parents, if they have the childcare vouchers, they're not able to use those vouchers after 11 o'clock. So, for example, for the half-day, the 5-day half-day programs, it's the second half of the day is from like 11 to 1 or 2, 11 to
10 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah, so it starts at 11. So the parents, if they wanted to bring them after that session, they could not take them to childcare. So a lot of parents were having some concerns about that versus the 2-day, 3-day where they would be able to take them all day. The increase in attendance by 6%. Related service providers have more time throughout the day to service the students. The 3-day students receive an extra half a day compared to the 5 half-day students. Some of some of more things on the negative side, the lack of consistency, obviously, of the consecutive days, of that routine of going to school every single day. It creates a long day for the 3-year-olds, for our students with disabilities. It's a long day for a 3-year-old. And then the parents in the 2-day programs always want more. So they're always like, I get calls all day long. My child needs more. We want the 3-day. And of course, the 3-day parents want the 5-day. So the parents are always requesting more. So some of the pros for the 5-day AM PM, it provides the consistency of the days. Some of the negative parts of it is that it doesn't build the stamina, creates childcare issues for the parents. I'm sorry, the cons. Sorry, I was reading that the wrong way.
You're good.
Oh,
Yeah, you're good.
yeah.
Yep.
You're good. You're good.
Sorry. And it's harder to fill the PM classes. So a lot of times the parents don't want those PM classes. Eventually they get full because they're just like, okay, we'll take it. But it's really hard to fill those classes. And then the attendance is down by 6%. Not enough time for the students to receive related services. Sometimes it's a little harder. And then it creates too many forced transitions. So like the kids get off the bus, they come in, they have a snack, then they take a short little break. And so by the time they do breakfast there, by the time they do all of those different transitional things throughout the day, the day is really quick and kind of choppy for the students. So some other considerations to think about as we move forward, just looking at the big picture. Like we have some data, but like I said earlier, I don't think it's enough. It's not enough sufficient data to really hold true to the data and really rely on the data to make a decision. And then if we move back to the 5-day A&PM, we have to do revisions to all of the IEPs, and it's about 170 that we would have to do. And because today is May 2nd, we would not have the manpower in time for MCAS and all of that to pull that off right now. So if the decision is to go back to the back to the 5 a.m. p.m., then that would really have to happen in the fall of 2020.
That would be our decision.
Yeah, no, I said if the decision is made. It would go back to the fall of 2020 because I don't know how we'd be able to do the revisions to the IEP before June is out. We'd have to hire teachers to come in during the summer to do it. It would be a lot. But if we had that year, we could do the IEPs as we go along and we could plan and prepare for that. And then also another thing to consider is with the movement of now all of these programs that were at ECC going back to comprehensive campuses, we have to, in those positions, repost those positions because they're moving. So if we do go back to the 5-day AM PM, we'll have to end those positions and repost them again. So we'll be doing that twice for these programs. Just something to consider. So looking at the charts, it's kind of easier if you spread all the 4 charts out so you can see the flow, which is why I didn't do a PowerPoint because we were just doing 4 charts at one time. So from 16 to 17, that was the year where everything was still with the 5-day AM PM. So that was our baseline year before we switched over to the 2-day, 3-day. So at that time, we had a total of 336 students that we were servicing. And you can look at the chart and see the programs that we had. And we have some full 5-day and some 5-day AM PM programs. And then we have the neighborhood kindergarten at Harrington and Connery. So the idea was that if we create the 2-day, 3-day programs versus the 5-day AM PM programs, we would create more slots for students because there was no space for additional programs. So if we go to 17 and 18, the purple that you see there, that's a change in the program. So if you look back at the chart from 16-17, that program got changed from a 5 full day to a 2-day, 3-day, which increased the number of students by 9. Because now we can double the amount of students. So that increased students by 9. At the bottom, you can see the purple. So all of everything in purple got changed from what it previously was. And we increased spots by 39 students total on this whole chart. If you add it all up, we increased spots by 39 by changing. And the spots were really changed not necessarily from the 5-day AM PM going to the 2-day, 3-day. It was changed by ending the 5 full day, because that's where you get the numbers. Because if you look at how you split it, so the 2-day, 3-day is split like this. The 5-day AM PM is just split like this. So those numbers are the same no matter how you slice it, type of thing. If you slice the pie this way, it's still a half. If you slice it this way, it's still a half. So those numbers that doesn't affect it at all. The only thing that really changed here was the ending of the 5 full day program going to the 2-day, 3-day. That's what gave us space and slots. And then you can see from 18 and 19, from 17, 18 to 18 and 19, there was only an increase of 9 spots because one of the self-contained programs that was a 5 full day got converted to a 2-day, 3-day, making it, giving just an additional 9 slots. But none of the integrated classes changed because at this point they were already all changed. So that didn't add any additional spots. Moving forward to 1920, if in the current direction that we were anticipating that we were going, or keeping things the same, status quo, as they currently are. It is not adding programs. And one thing that spots, sorry, it is not adding any additional slots, because we're not changing any more of the 5 full-day programs, because we still need those programs for students with disabilities who need that level of support. And if we close too many of those programs and change them to 2-day, 3-day, we won't be able, that'll limit the number of kids who we can support that really need that level of support. So we kind of have to stay status quo with that. One thing I did do on this sheet, just to give a better understanding as well, is I kind of gave 2 numbers for the total. So as you're looking at it, you'll see those 2 numbers. The reason for that is because as you cross over the years, we added programs, so I had to take those numbers out for the data to be realistic. Because obviously if you add a program of 8 kids, there's going to be an increase just because we added a program. But the point was to see if the changing of the programming added numbers, not adding additional programs. So question?
Member Capola.
I get a lot of concern from staff in regards to not liking the 2-3 day. So that is I'd like to correct about a child can enter into an after school or program. I don't know how we want to call it.
The PM?
No, if they're in the morning time, like they're in an ed plan and they were in the morning program, they had till 11:30 to enter into an extended day, whether it's home daycare or center based or something like that. So they had up till 11:30. So it worked for parents who had students on ed plans that had the morning program. So, just to correct that, it wasn't 11, so they can still make it in there. But I don't know. I hear from the staff that they're not happy with it. I heard, last year that a lot of staff that worked the morning, the 5 days, the morning and the afternoon programs, left to go to other jobs, to transfer into other jobs because they, it just was chaotic and they weren't interested in that. And we're a big system, so obviously they can bid on other jobs and move along. And the other thing is, as far as the students getting their services, because if they're not there 5 days, and they were on a 2-day, and the support people, whether it's OT, PT, or the speech, if they aren't there on those particular days, it can be a problem for them, the student not getting what they need. So this is what's come back to myself, and I think maybe some other people at the table have heard the same thing. I wish that this had been brought, on one of our agendas much earlier, because obviously you've put us in a spot, or we're in a spot where it affects everything now,
Superintendent.
Yeah, so just quickly, I think Ms. Jamerson, and if you did explicitly say it, I apologize. What we're saying here is that basically, from an output standpoint, there isn't a large difference between the 2 approaches. We're also saying that, there are pros and cons to both approaches. We could go either way. And frankly, we could accommodate a 5-day AM PM from a space standpoint. This is not Ms. Jamerson's fault. If anybody's fault, I'd say it's mine for raising the issue now. But frankly, it was voted upon last May to continue for this year. And it wasn't brought to my attention that there was an interest in changing it until I brought forward the program shift from ECC, and there was a two-day on there, and someone said, wait a minute, are we still doing this? So I will take responsibility for not asking if this is something that you wanted to continue with for next year. But what we're saying definitively is we can go either way. We can accommodate the 2-day, 3-day, or the 5-day, but there's not the human resources to pull off the IEP changes to do it for the fall if the committee wanted to go to a 5-day AM/PM.
And I think the reason that this whole thing started was because we were told there wasn't any space, which we felt at the table there was space, to leave it the way it was, but, that's all down the pass road, so we're not going to concern ourselves. And it would be a big nightmare to try to do 170 IEPs over again, and then staff are thinking, we haven't started posting jobs, have we? No. Okay. It's a bumping your business. It hasn't really started yet. So it wouldn't affect that really. But, I think earlier next year, maybe we can look at this again in fairness, to the students and families, but as well as to the staff themselves. Great concern.
Member Gately?
Ms. Jamison, you came in at the end of something that was like my nightmare, and I hear from a lot of parents, and I was very disappointed when we were told as a committee, and these are the same people that were told, there is no space, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and parents didn't want to do it, and parents came in and spoke against it. You missed that. So it's like, that's why I have an attitude, and I know I do. I'm sorry, I'm passionate about this because I'm very worried. I am so confused about the special ed component and what is our pre-K. Like, pre-K to me is 4-year-olds going to pre-K, and it's done by a lottery and they get to go. I look at the Connery Elementary School population, and I look at children that are 4-year-olds that don't have anyone to read to them, that don't have their needs met, and 16 of them couldn't go to pre-K this year because they had to do that 2-3 day. That's what I'm looking at. What about those 16 kids? That's why I am so passionate. What about these 4-year-olds that are not learning these basic needs, that are in regular ed, but you need special ed? I read through your whole, your proposal, and I understand it, and it makes perfect sense to help us alleviate our early intervention needs. That helps us that one day, that Monday, we have the time to test them, to take care of them, to do all this stuff for the special needs. But my big concern is, what about those 4-year-olds in those communities? And that's what kills me. We didn't have space last year, but we really did. We had like 8 classrooms. We didn't have space last year. We were all spoken to about that. No one stepped up. No one even looked. I mentioned that we had space, but no one would look. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I have one parent that's, her kid's going to go in there, not this coming year, the following year. She wants to know, you'd let me know if we're going to go the 5-day or are we going to do that 2-3 day thing. So that's why it's really not, you walked into cow manure. Yeah. And I'm sorry that you have to see this side of me because I just get so passionate about those 4-year-olds. That's what pre-K is supposed to be. We're supposed to be taking care of our 4-year-olds that are in disadvantaged areas and that can't get the help at home. So then we lose them, like they only go 2 days or whatever, and that's what bothers me. That's really what bothers me. I understand we can't, like we were put in a situation now that we have to vote. Our back's against the wall. We have to vote. So all the people that are in special ed have to write 171 IEPs. If we decide to go back to the 5 a.m. p.m., that's a horrible position to be put in because I wouldn't do that to anybody. But it's still the fact that that is what the reality is for all of us. And it's really, obviously I get upset, And I liked your pre-K two-day, it sounds fine. But I don't want to stay with that. I want it to come up in like October or November of next year, and we take a good look at how we are going to deal with the pre-K next year in 2020. And I think that would be a reasonable thing, but we have to do it earlier. It's really not, I feel so bad because I know you're a lovely person. I watched you in the interview, so.
So just one thing to reply to that. So I am passionate too about the 4-year-olds having pre-K because I definitely believe in that. The greater issue still does go back to space. So spacing is an issue, and what's eventually may happen if we continue to grow. Like if we saw in the two-day, at any time we have right now we have 522 early childhood students waiting to be evaluated to receive special educational services. So the federal law says that we have to provide 3-year-olds that are found with disabilities, we have to provide an education for them. And the sad part of the situation is that if we don't find space, eventually all of these integrated programs, we're going to have to say we need the space for the special ed kids because the federal law says that we have to do this. The federal law does not say we have to educate the 4-year-olds. I don't want the 4-year-olds to be out of these programs. I want to do everything I can to try to keep them in there. I really like the integrated programs. I think it's beneficial for both students with disabilities and students without disabilities to be in those programs together. So it would break my heart to lose that demographics in the program. So we just have to think creative and find creative ways to keep those students in the program, but yet still follow the federal mandates at the same time. And it's like this balancing act. So I say all the time, like we have so many early childhood kids that we are just not getting to in time for evaluations. But I think, wow, 520 kids waiting for evaluations. If we put all our resources to evaluate those kids, and a lot of them start to, qualify, then it's like this teeter-totter. Like, okay, now where do we put them? Like they're all qualified, but where do we put them? We put all our resources on this end, but we now don't have space to put them anywhere. And then that would eventually end more of these integrated programs because we would be forced to have to figure something out. And that's the direction that I'm trying to prevent. So that was more of where the two-day was like, okay, let's offer most of the early childhood students that come to us, most of them require speech services. So we're like, okay, if we can just hit the need of those students and provide them with a speech without them necessarily being fully in special ed or fully having those services, but still getting the services they need at the same time, then maybe we can alleviate the overcrowdedness of having to convert some of the integrated programs into the self-contained programs. Because when the state calls and says, oh, you guys are out of compliance, you guys need to fix this, like we have to fix it. So it's really just trying to be creative and think outside of the box to service the needs of all students.
Yep. I'm looking for places. I'm actively looking, and I'm going to find places.
Member Satterwhite?
Obviously, these kids are not enrolled in our schools, the 500-plus kids that need to be reviewed. Okay. But the moment that they are, we're going to get funding from the state with regards to, or is that start at a particular age?
What do you mean?
There's like 13,000 per seat that we receive, or yeah, that's.
It doesn't work like that. It does just because a student is identified and then has a right to.
And then is
program,
enrolled.
It does not mean and is enrolled. That doesn't necessarily translate to additional funding. It's not that clean.
Following year it would.
Okay. So it's.
Percentage based on how many, if they're not a full-time student, you don't get full-time money.
Okay. So there's a lot of math involved, and there's okay. It always comes back to the space aspect. Yeah. And we have to continue to look. I know I bring it up every time, but I know we talked about Fallon. I know we talked about just different spaces throughout the city that we could possibly look into. But we got to continue to do that. And I understand that you said that this is we voted on it last year and no one brought it up until recently. I think we've always spoke about space.
Sure.
But not specific to the pre-K, although I do recall a few times it was brought up, but not with you to say, hey, we want to change it. That is correct. And it humbles me to say that you accepting responsibility is, you know, it's not all your fault, but for the fact that you accepted it is
Thank you.
Is great of you. Thank you for that. But
Thank you.
can I get at least the not the promise or the actual word from you that you're going to continue to look for space so we can do stuff?
Yeah, I mean, what I will commit to is being creative, to turning every stone. I mean, that's you know, true in my core. So, you know, as we look at how we were able to make the Discovery Academy happen and where we were able to find spaces in other schools, we took largely existing labs and just, you know, computers come out, we'll provide that school with a laptop cart. That's a classroom. That's a space. We need that space. So and I don't think that that's like extraordinarily creative, but that's, you know, what circumstances drove us to do. We know that there are some spaces in the city that might be available for us. We're having those conversations. I mean, we continue. I mean, we've gone and looked at things. We're out there. Some of this is out of our control. Some of it has budget implications. I think, you know, ideas like what Ms. Jamerson has proposed relative to the two-day helps us provide kids with services. I mean, this is thinking outside of the box, right? And, you know, the hope is that this will be a successful endeavor next year. But this is a way for us to provide services without necessarily finding additional spaces. So that thinking outside of the box, the commitment to continuously looking for options and spaces to educate children, I mean, that won't go away. We are committed to that. I am committed to that.
Thank you.
Member Capola, then Member Nicholson.
Last year we brought up, but you weren't here at that time, but it was brought up that how can we partner with the outside center-based places, like let's say, for instance, Greg House, and you know, so those children can stay there, but if they needed the services, how could we get them the services in those places?
So that is something that I am working on. It just takes time. So I've met with some of the early childhood communities. North Shore Early Intervention. Sorry. So I've met with them, but I just met them, so we're kind of getting to know them. They have new people in their office. So these are some ideas that I have, is to try to figure out where we could provide some services in their locations for students. I'm just not there yet. It's been 7 months.
Okay.
So give me a little time and we'll get there.
I knew you weren't here last year when we had that discussion.
You weren't
here. Yeah.
It is definitely something that is in the forefront of my mind.
Okay, and another thing is, when we got our warrants, which are like paying consultants from outside, you know, we had a huge amount of money under the Perkins. And when I called to check on it, you know, the understanding was that we haven't had for a couple of years somebody who could work with the students that we have that are blind, that need services. Is there any work being done on that? I'm not sure.
Hiring a vision teacher?
I think it was more than a vision teacher. It would look like a lot of vision services.
So,
exactly. Not necessarily a
the
teacher,
state
but the vision
recognizes
services.
That is a huge shortage. Like, there is just a huge shortage nationwide for vision services. And trying to find a teacher to provide those services, it's very difficult. The state has sent a survey to the special ed directors in the entire state, just asking various questions about their availability of getting vision services. So I think the state is looking at doing something on a bigger level to try to help with that too, because they're just not out there. So we're doing what we can to try to recruit those people and get them in here so we can provide services for our vision students.
Because it was a huge amount of money that we're we are spending to, to have them, get them to contract, so. Okay.
Superintendent Tutwiler?
No,
you had-
I'm all good.
Member Nicholson?
Yes, thank you. Briefly, I was going to ask what Mr. Capola asked about the partnering with outside centers. Yeah. But I just wanted to, sorry, what was, you were
I'll
going
speak
to
to
speak?
it. Yeah, but I might need Jackie's help because I can't remember the name. I mentioned to you this fall a grant that we applied for, which would support exactly that, partnering with community childcare. What was the name of that grant? Do you want to come up and give us you don't? Okay, you want? Okay, all right. And just give us just a brief snapshot of what that. We didn't get it.
And if she
but
can say
it's-
that again, because many people who are listening outside really can hear her without the microphone.
So, it's the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative Grant, or CPPI grant. And we did apply for it last December. We unfortunately were not awarded, but I think it kind of got things moving for us. I think we're in a better place going forward, so when the opportunity comes up again, we have more of a plan. The idea was to partner with the Greg House, was our first partner, because they had space during the day, because they have an after-school program. So it was a perfect place for us. But then moving forward, we had planned on partnering with other communities. A lot of the groundwork was done this past year because of the grant. So, and I'm still involved in the advocacy circles around this. So I'm hoping that if funding is available again, we'll have a better opportunity. We're one of the only gateway cities that does not have the grant, so I think it's our turn.
It is our turn.
Member Nicholson to finish up, and then Member Castellanos.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I thank you for that update. I really think that when we look at other cities that are achieving universal pre-K, they're doing it by working with other agencies and taking advantage of what they have in their community. And I think it's up to us to sort of build that coalition and show the leadership in the city to get everybody working together. So I'm really glad to hear that's moving forward. So thank you.
Member Castellanos.
I appreciate that as well. So what were some of the reasons for not being awarded?
I think a big piece was that we did not apply for the planning grant the previous year. So we were already at a disadvantage. So all the planning had to happen in like 3 weeks. So I think that was kind of, but we still wanted to go for it just in case, and I still think, I'm not sad that we went for it. I think it's still, we got a lot of work done that we can move forward. And even starting to build partnerships with the community, just having those conversations. And I think we're definitely in a better place than we were last year to move forward.
Definitely, I think the process, whenever you do anything, the process is very valuable, especially when it comes, now you kind of have a diagnostic of what to do, how to prepare for the criteria when the application comes out again. Do we know when that's going to be? No. Projected? Okay. Thank you.
Member Sadoway.
So, after your presentation, there's the program development. Are you going to go over that, or is this something?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It was just a lot of information, and
Okay.
so I kind of wanted to break it up and then do the first part, ask questions, and then do
Okay.
the second part. Because
Perfect.
So it just was too much to do all at once. And I know there was like dire questions to get out there. I know you have questions, so let me get to the questions on that part. So, any other questions on this, and then we'll go into the program development. So, this program, just looking at this program, it was based on the fact that we already have the two-day, 3-day program. And the reason for this program is to try to, like I said, come up with a plan to still service students and give them what they need without overloading ourselves on having to create more programs and yet still offering the services to students.
Just needed to
And part of that long-term plan is the partnerships in the community, because that's one way we're gonna be able to get that done as well. But I was saying also that we have approximately 522 students. So when I say waiting for evaluation, these are students, their parents have requested for them to be evaluated, or the doctors have written letters, the parents have turned in the letters. So these are, and they're all different states, phases in where they are with those evaluations. And what I mean by that is some parents just come in with the evaluation and they have to register their students, and some parents just, that's it, that's all they do is they'll just bring their paperwork and they never bring the child back in for evaluation. So there's different, some parents do bring the kids back in and they get evaluated, they qualify, they get services. Some of them we evaluate, they don't qualify for services. So that's kind of different layers of where those students are. So so the two-day was, the thought is to, the kids who are already receiving today, it would be for those kids. So those kids who are already receiving the two-day program would continue to just get the 2-day. So I guess if we were thinking about how we split it, if the decision is to go back to the 5-day AM PM, then this program could still operate as a 4-day AM PM, and then still having that 5th day as a day for the other services. So the type of students are, I'm not going to be redundant, so the type of students are the same students that I described to you in our pre-K programs. So those are the students that it's for. So for the students that receive, that 5th day program, so the 2-day, same type of students as before. The students that receive the 5th day program are students whose parents have signed a consent for evaluation at the end of the previous year but weren't evaluated. So currently, because we are very short-staffed and have so many students that are coming in to be evaluated, we're not able to get to all the evaluations before the school year is over that have already been put in for this school year. And it's also for students whose parents have kind of signed consent and are waiting to be evaluated, and the students who have signed the consents, but maybe they haven't come back yet. We send out the consent, but the consents haven't come back yet to us. Same age, 3 years away from these students. And the attendance would be the 1 day. So the program curriculum would consist of the social learning groups, and that will be taught by the special education teacher. And there'll also be social learning groups with the coordinated family and community engagement, which Jackie runs that program. And then also speech services. So trying to get the best idea, like on page 3, it kind of gives a little breakdown. And I broke down even further to give an example of the teacher scheduling, because it does get very confusing as what's happening and what's going on that 5th day. So there would be a mixture of evaluations, community-based learning. So what the community-based learning would be, the community-based learning, the kids are in the 2-day program. During the 5th day, 1 day every other month to start, if this goes forward, the teachers in the program would meet the parents of the 2-day kids in the community. So the parents would come bring the kids, so let's say they go to the library, or they go to the park, or they'll go to the museum, but they would meet the students in the community and do an activity with the students and their parents in the community. So that would happen once every other month to start. So that gives those kids in the 2-day a little extra activity with the teachers as well, and their parents. The social learning groups would be the groups that the teachers would run every other week. And then every other week, the speech pathologists would run groups as well. So they're getting speech services in the groups. Jackie, when I brought her in, I'm like, I have this idea. So she was like, well, is there space for me? Because currently, CFCE is housed outside of Lynn Public School, and we're paying, what, $16,000 a year for that space?
For space, yeah.
Give or take. So with this program, we were able to say, yeah, we can make it work and collaborate, and let's do a collaboration and bring them now back into the district, because they already do social learning groups with the kids, but they do their groups coordinated with parent groups. So they'll have the kids will be in the classroom with the teacher, and another teacher will take the parents to another room and do a group with the parents. So Jackie being there, we're kind of looking to model that same type of thing with her support to help her teach our teachers how to develop those programs and work together. Her teachers will teach some of our classes and back and forth. So there'll be the parenting classes. The paras that are assigned to that class would just stay in the class regardless of who's in there, whatever day it is, they would just be in there the 5 days a week. Looking at the schedule, so I kind of had to think of it like day 5, A schedule. This reminds me of the high school waterfall schedule. Day 5, A schedule. But if the high school kids can figure it out, I'm pretty sure our teachers can do it. Right? And then you see that from, and this is just obviously an example of what it would look like, teacher A, teacher 1 and teacher 2. The social learning group, they would have 2 social learning groups, and then they would do some pre-K assessment, and they would also have a prep built in, while the other teacher is doing the pre-K assessment and then the social learning groups. The reason it's flip-flop where they're not doing social learning groups at the same time is because the 2 rooms that we use for this program, for the TA 2 day, during the 5th day, we would use 1 room, and then CFCE would use the other. So Jackie's program would use the other room. And then we would just work alongside them to collaborate with the parents and getting the education for the parents. And then it just shows an example of the speech pathologist. So the speech pathologist would be there to run a schedule. And while the speech pathologist was running a schedule, the teachers would be doing either the community-based learning or they will be doing evaluations. Currently, we have to pay we have to contract for our early childhood evaluations. We have to contract out for that. So we're hoping that with this plan that the teachers are doing enough evaluations where even if we still may have to contract out, it definitely won't be as much. So that will decrease that bill for the outside contract services we have to pay to help with the evaluations because the numbers are so high. And then the day 5C, that's more of a testing professional development day. So we're looking at once a month having a meeting with our teachers and CFCE, their staff, to just collaborate because they'll be in the same space, go over different things. They'll provide us with PD on those days, and we'll just kind of collaborate, see where we are. And then there's also a schedule for the coordinated family and community engagement and what their day in the program looks like. And we're still currently we do all of our early childhood evaluations at ECC. So Dr. Tutwiler has said that we can keep that office space there that we have to still do the testing there.
Member Capola.
So if I understand you correctly, if a child is on a 2-day, this Monday, are you expecting the parents to come every Monday for different services?
Not every Monday, no. So our program wouldn't have classes for the parents every Monday. Maybe every other Monday we would have classes for our parents. Your program has them every time they come.
And, like your program, Jackie, I know it, but a lot of those parents aren't working. They have their kids, they're caring for their kids at home. But how many of your 2-day parents here are either working? Do you know the percentage of them that are working?
Don't.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering how effective would that be without, yeah.
So because we're coordinating with what Jackie is already doing, if the parents didn't come, it wouldn't be a lot. Like if no parent showed, they would go to the classes that the CFC is offering, or we would parallel our classes with them. So it wouldn't feel lost. Does that make sense? If they don't come, the other parents that come for Jackie's program are
They
still
come
there.
for Jackie's group,
Yes,
exactly.
so-
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
There's nothing, Patrick, that we have to vote on?
There's a presentation.
We have to do something.
Yeah, you would need to vote to extend the 2-day, 3-day for the 1920 school year. Last time that it was voted upon, it was voted just for this year.
That's what
Last May.
that's what I recall, yeah. But is this 2-day different?
It's actually not. So, again, as Ms. Jamerson said, the students who would normally be in a 2-day program would be served by this 2-day. So just 2 classrooms of 2-day, no 3-day program in that building. If that makes sense. The additional piece is just providing services, frankly, to students who we haven't invited into, formally into a pre-K program. Does that make sense?
Another thing about the program is the kids that come to that 5th day, say all these kids are waiting in the queue to be evaluated, and if those students happen to not meet the qualifications and the team decides that they're not eligible for services, we would invite them to join Jackie's program. So they would be able to, we wouldn't just cut them off and say, oh, well, sorry. We would say, however, we have these other programs that you, and we're trying to figure all the time the best that we can to make that transition easy for the parents, so they would still get something.
So
Member
are you saying that if an IEP isn't completed, but somebody is waiting to be tested at Child's Play, you're still going to put them in those 2-day slots?
No.
Okay,
no,
all right.
That's just for the 5th day. The 2-day slots are for students who have already been identified.
Right, okay.
So that's why it's day 5 programming. That's why you have that separate.
Yes, but one of the programs will be, for the 2 classes, one will be an integrated program and one will be a self-contained program for the 2-day.
Well, there's the point's been, obviously been clearly made that we want to work on this earlier in the fall. But at this point, there's a requirement to vote on the upcoming year to continue what had been a 1 year. So, I mean, that's the discussion we're at this point.
And we got feedback from both the presenter and the superintendent that it wouldn't matter either way, whether it's this or.
We could
Yes.
go either way. From a space standpoint,
yeah.
we could accommodate the 5-day AM/PM.
But, based off of what is presented in this is done very well, and I appreciate that. It's informative, and like you said, it's creative. So I'd like to make a motion to pilot this proposed special education program development 2-3-day for fiscal, not fiscal.
3-day.
No, you're telling me it's 2-3-day, or is it 2-day?
So basically what you would be voting on is to continue the model this year for next year.
This model.
That's not, if that happened, that's not a new program per se. It is a creative way to provide services for students who are in the queue.
Well,
Not a new program.
I'm reading it. It says the plan to action is to change the current 2-3-day pre-K program into a 2-day pre-K program. So maybe that's not what we're voting on. We're just going to vote on to continue the pilot for 2-day, 3-day pre-K.
You
Not
would
do
be
this?
voting to continue what we're doing this year, next year. That's it.
So this won't happen next year.
This won't happen.
It will. It will. That fits within, we could do that this year.
Okay.
That you wouldn't, that's not a new program per se.
There's the vote to continue the 2-day, 3-day pilot program through 1920.
Second.
Requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jamerson, Ms. Gallo.
Thank you.
Is that through next year? That next year.
Next on the agenda is we have field trip request, Lynn Woods, grade 5 to Canopy Lake Park, Salem, New Hampshire, on May 24th, 2019.
I'm sorry, I'm giddy because this is my daughter's school.
It's that time of the year. Go ahead.
What do you recommend?
Deeply.
Okay, I recommend that the school committee approve the field trip request for Lynn Woods, grade 5, to go to Canopy Lake Park, Salem, New Hampshire, on May 24th, 2019.
Second.
There's a second, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Coble?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is a proposal for Principal Hebert, Druid School, request to accept various donations totaling $850 from local businesses.
I make a motion that Principal Hebert at Druid School be allowed to accept the various donations totaling $850 from local businesses.
Second.
Requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is demolition of the old Marshall Middle School. John Ford, Member Ford.
We brought this up at the last meeting. We couldn't do anything with it because it wasn't on the agenda. But I think, based on talking to Councilor Seer, it's become a real problem down in the neighborhood. And I'd like to see the money set aside for demolition to raise this and bring it down and secure the neighborhood safety.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is to vote to hold a public hearing on the budget. Member Capola?
Do we have the budget?
No.
Just get set down.
Okay.
Set down a public hearing date on the budget.
Is there a suggested date, Mayor?
Superintendent?
June 27th.
That was the date we had discussed.
Is that our regular school committee meeting?
I do believe.
Yes. I think that was the date we had discussed.
What date did you pick?
In terms of the budget, so the school committee knows where the budget at this point is. We're having final meetings on the city side as well as with the schools to put a final piece together. We anticipate by the end of next week we'll have a budget available for the city council to then begin their process. And I think setting down the date on the 27th was what we had discussed in the past to have our public hearing and hopefully resolve it at that point. Member Capola?
When would we have our budget?
So we are also deeply engaged and would like to get a budget book in your hands the week of May 20th and formally present it to you and answer any questions you have on the meeting on the 30th. And if there are more questions, we could have it be a feature on our meeting on the 13th of June. But if we waited until the 30th, we wouldn't, there's not enough time to get it on for the budget hearing. The 30 days would put us into July. That's why we're asking.
And that's why we're asking for the vote to set the date. And I think the point's well taken, Superintendent, that as the budget is made available, it doesn't preclude us from having ongoing discussions and questions related to that, and then schedule a public hearing for the 27th. There'll be more than enough time, hopefully, to review the budget over a number of weeks.
Make a motion to.
Member Satterwhite.
I was just going to make the
Okay.
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to hold a public hearing on the budget for June 27th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is ratification of votes taken in the Building and Grounds Subcommittee.
There were 2 votes taken. One, to approve the garden at LVTI, run by the Food Project. In the form of motion.
Is a motion to accept
Second.
that? Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes.
And the second vote taken was what's written here is the Harrington hot top proposal, but it's the painted configuration on the Harrington schoolyard for exercises within the schoolyard.
Second.
The second requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Next on the agenda is ratification of votes taken in the Personnel Subcommittee.
That is myself, and I, thank you, couldn't find the draft.
Oh, yeah.
We moved, a vote to move to the full committee, a job for athletic, is it trainer or the director?
Yes, trainer.
Yeah, the trainer, exactly. We discussed this at a previous meeting. There was some corrections made on it. Instead of treatment, first aid was put in with splinting, icing, et cetera, explained. And also on number 10, we had pain management to that, and it was passed to the full committee for approval.
Make a motion to.
Is a motion on the table?
Second.
Second.
Second, that requires a roll call.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. And next on the agenda, ratification of votes taken in the Policy Subcommittee.
There were no votes taken on the policy subcommittee. We scheduled a subcommittee meeting the evening of Tuesday, May 14th at 7 o'clock to continue discussion about the attendance policy.
Okay. And with that, next on the agenda is communications and information.
That's me. Okay. Would like to start this report with some important logistical information. At present, we have 8 elementary schools that start the school day at 8:15 a.m. And 12, including Cubby's Den, that start at 7:45. The imbalance makes special education transportation a real challenge as it relates to on-time arrival. Further, were we to continue with the imbalance, there would be a budget implication on the order of approximately $60,000. Prioritizing the on-time arrival, it seemed prudent to achieve a balance between the early and late start schools. I'm planning to change the start times at Tracy and Brickett Elementary Schools to early, both of which are early schools currently, to the 8:15 a.m. start time. Letters will be going out to families at the 2 schools at the close of the school year and then again in late summer. But I wanted to make you aware of that change. One of my favorite professors in graduate school was a woman by the name of Eleanor Duckworth, who wrote a book titled The Having of Wonderful Ideas, thinking not so much about the content of the book, which was heavily theory-laden, and more about the title. Out of a conversation with some 8th grade Breed students a few weeks ago on a Sunday, Mr. Nicholson was there, Attorney Nicholson, came a wonderful idea. In our casual conversation, the students were talking about an idea for program improvement and offered general feedback. This is the kind of thing I would like to happen with students formally, frequently, and not by happenstance. The wonderful idea: next year I'd like to start an LPS student cabinet. I don't know if that name will stay, but maybe say more. The idea is raw at this point, but generally the thought is to meet monthly with a representative group of students, grades 5 through 12. I'm hoping to gain deeper insight to the student experience, to understand how decisions that I or we make impact students, and provide a space for the sharing of ideas. I don't want to give the appearance that this is or will be the only feedback mechanism for students. I see this as a rich opportunity for discussion and idea exchange in addition to other modes of feedback. At this point, again, the idea is still raw, but I thought it prudent to share where my thinking is headed with respect to student voice in the coming year and beyond. The next step is to collaborate with principals to establish a means to identify the students, and I'll keep you posted on that. Out of the same conversation came an idea to look closely at the trends involving the vocational areas of study Lynn students tend to opt for in applying to Essex Tech. If there was an identifiable trend, perhaps it could be the driving force behind the shops we would explore opening in the future. In so thinking, we drew down the data, which is why I had it sort of fresh on my mind earlier, on the students currently attending Essex Tech. Unfortunately, no one area stood out. It was a virtual tie between animal science, horticulture, and environmental science and technology. That horticulture might be something to look at down the line. That said, we will continue to think about and explore expansion at Lynn Tech. We will consult industry needs in addition to this new and important data point. I'd also like to keep you updated as it relates to the computer virus. We were back up and running, returning to many normal network operations on April 8th. Until yesterday, we operated under one connection, which allows for normal use but precludes streaming and other applications that reduce bandwidth capacity. We opened a second connection today, which should improve speed. The reduced use of connections allows the Charles River Associates specialists to monitor activity more effectively, to identify abnormalities. Thankfully, there have been no issues in this realm to report thus far. We are waiting for a final report from Charles River Associates, which I suspect will shed some light on how we became susceptible to the virus and recommendations going forward. Once I have it in hand, I'll share. Yes, sir.
Will it also give us information as to if any information was stolen? Okay, that's the key component I wanted to hear. Thank you.
To date, there's nothing to report on that front.
Okay.
Relative to the awesome presentation earlier by Rania Caldwell and Phyllis Hardy, we are preparing to open a two-way immersion program in September 2020. As was shared with you via superintendent's report on January 10th, we received the dual language seed grant, which is being held by the Salem Public Schools. The grant will be used to purchase supplemental resources for this program, such as Spanish-leveled readers, Spanish phonics and fluency resources, and Spanish literacy assessments. Due to the grant's timeline of using the funds, which is before June 30th, a committee of teachers and administrators from Lynn and Salem met to review these supplemental resources with the goal of purchasing before the end of May. This expedited timeline is necessary due to the closing date of the grant. A committee will meet in the summer and fall to begin reviewing potential core curriculum resources with the full intention of following the curriculum textbook adoption process that was outlined for you in our February 28th meeting. Finally, I enjoy all points during the school year, start to finish. All of them make me smile, make me happy, but late spring tends to be my favorite. This is the point in the school year that the entire community comes to celebrate student learning and accomplishments during the year. The middle and high school jazz concert on Tuesday night and the opening of yesterday's art show are two of a number of events coming. In your packets, there are schedules of upcoming year-end events, including but not limited to graduation. That is all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.